Chapter 241. Robert smiled and said, "Miss, the boss is in the study." "Okay, thank you." Xia Dong held the doorknob and pushed the door open. The first thing she saw was rows of wooden bookshelves. Rather than calling it a study, it was more appropriate to call it a small library. It was at least 200 to 300 square meters in size. The fragrance of ink permeated the entire room. The huge floor-to-ceiling windows were covered by thick curtains. A tall wooden table was placed in front of 2 rows of ancient bookshelves, and a tall figure sat in front of the table. He was about 60 years old, with a head full of silver hair and a few wrinkles at the corners of his eyes. He had light blue eyes and a high nose bridge. The tip of his nose was slightly curved downwards. When he was not smiling, he looked a little cold. Although this face was full of vicissitudes of life, it could not hide his charming charm. He was Tomac, the person who made the entire Italian mafia tremble in fear. He single-handedly founded the world's largest firearms organization, the Dark Knight. Tomac stood up. "Look who's here, my lovely Xia and Gigai." He opened his arms with a bright smile on his face. Godfather, God-grandfather, Xia Dong and Xiao Guai both walked towards him, one hugging his waist and the other hugging his leg. "You two little things, you haven't come to see me for so long. This old man is very lonely." Tomac patted Xia Dong's back, then bent down to pick up Xiao Guai. He rubbed his cheek against her cute little face and said in fluent Chinese, "Gigai, do you miss God-grandfather?" "Yes." Xiao Guai loudly kissed Tomac's cheek and nodded heavily. Tomac beamed. "How much do you miss him?" "Very, very much. I miss him so much that my hair is about to fall out." Xiao Guai playfully patted the little hat on her head and cutely stuck out her tongue. Tomac laughed heartily. "Little one, you're becoming more and more glib, just like your brother. But I like it very much." Godfather quickly put Xiao Guai down. "Don't tire yourself out." Tomac glared at her. Xia, I'm not an ordinary old man. Gigai's weight can't crush me." All right, I know you're amazing. Please sit down." Xia Dong held his shoulders and pushed him into the chair. She also sat down on the sofa beside him. "Godfather, I haven't seen you in so long. How are you?" "Very good. I even fought with the old man from the Fayer family some time ago." Tomac proudly showed off. "Of course, I won." That old man bowed and admitted defeat on the spot. "Foster father, you're really vigorous despite your age." Tomac liked Eastern culture very much. He could understand the idioms used by Xia Dong, and he also liked to use idioms. "Of course, I was invincible back in the day." He couldn't stop talking about the things that had happened in the past. The three of them talked about a lot of happy things. Xiao Guai was a little sleepy, so Tomac asked the butler to send the mother and son to their room to rest. During breakfast the next day, Tomac asked about Bailey Han. Xia Dong looked at Xiao Guai and then explained her current situation in Italian. Tomac didn't say anything and directly asked someone to contact the hospital to send Xiao Guai in 2 days. As for Xia Dong, he also asked someone to contact the best doctor to treat her. Tomac smiled kindly. Xia, did you mention to Ocean that you came to Rome?" Xia Dong shook her head. "I haven't told him yet." "That's your fault. If Ocean finds out that you came to me, he'll definitely be angry with you." Xia Dong smiled bitterly. "I don't want to. I just don't know how to face him. Moreover, I don't want to trouble him anymore." Tomac looked serious. "You're wrong. Even if you don't accept Ocean's feelings, you're still friends who are as close as siblings. You're also my family. There's no trouble between family members. This relationship that's thicker than blood should be maintained." Xia Dong was stunned. Her foster father was right. She liked to escape too much, and it insulted the relationship between her and Mikakito. She said solemnly, "Foster father, I know what to do." Tomak smiled gently. "Very good. I've always thought highly of the two of you. I hope that the two of you can be as close as siblings in the future." Xia Dong's eyes were a little sore. She still remembered that not long after she and Mikakito went to Japan, she signed up for a Japanese class at night in order to adapt to Japan as soon as possible. One night, when she returned home from class, she met an injured foreign old man in a dark alley. She saved the old man without hesitation. She carried him on her back and walked a kilometer to send him to the hospital. After that, Mikakito found out that the old man she saved was Tomak, and Tomak was being chased by his enemies. Mikakito didn't abandon them. Instead, she used the power of the Sanku group to protect them. Later, Tomak adopted Mikakito and Xia Dong as his foster children. He didn't have any children of his own, only a nephew. He treated them like his own children. Under his instructions, the entire family respectfully addressed them as young master and Mississippi. Xia Dong had spent her days in Rome, just like a princess in a fairy tale. She had also obtained the fatherly love that she had lost for many years from Tomak, so she had always respected and loved him like a father. Tomak waved his hand, and Robert walked forward with a tray in both hands. Tomak reached out, picked up the keys on the tray, and placed them in front of Xia Dong. He smiled and said, Xia, I didn't prepare a gift for you when you got married, so I'll make it up to you now. These are the keys to a villa and a car. The villa is near the hospital where Gigai is staying, so it'll be convenient for you to take care of her. Thank you, foster father." Xia Dong hugged him emotionally. "Silly girl." Tomak sighed. "I haven't seen you for a year, and I didn't expect so many things to happen. Gigai has grown a lot taller, and you're married. It seems that I'm really old." "No, you're not old at all. Otherwise, how could Uncle Sam be defeated by you?" Sam was the person that Tomak had mentioned last night. He was the head of the Phil family. Tomak laughed loudly. After breakfast, Andrew drove Xia Dong and Xiao Guai to the hospital that they had booked. The hospital was located in the suburbs, and the transportation was convenient. The surrounding environment was very good, and the high-class ward was very luxurious. It was many times better than the hospitals in China. The lobby of the public area was like the living room of a luxurious villa, luxuriously decorated. Xia Dong chatted with the attending doctor about Xiao Guai's condition. After learning about the various facilities in the hospital, she was very satisfied. She planned to send Xiao Guai in 2 days. After walking out of the hospital, Andrew drove them through a block and parked the car in front of a detached villa. He smiled and introduced, "Miss, this is the villa that boss bought for you." The villa was very beautiful. It was decorated in a European style, with a garden and a swimming pool. There was a brand new luxury car parked in the garage. Xia Dong was very moved. "Andrew, help me thank foster father. I like the gift." "Okay, Mississippi." Andrew left 2 bodyguards to secretly protect Xia Dong and Xiao Guai. He drove back to the castle to report. There were 2 maids in the villa, both of whom had been transferred from the castle by Tomak. They had undergone strict training and were quite skilled. They had already tidied up the villa. It was as if they were invisible. Whenever there was a need, they would immediately appear in front of him. Xia Dong stood on the balcony and watched the maids busy downstairs in the garden. She took out the new phone that Andrew had prepared for her and dialed a number. "Who is this?" Mikakito saw the area code and knew that the call was from Italy, so she deliberately used Italian. Xia Dong paused and said in Chinese, "Brother Shin, it's me. Why did you go to Italy?" Mikakito frowned. She was already more than 5 months pregnant. Why was she still running around? Xiaodong smiled. I'm here to wait for the delivery. Foster father has already arranged the best hospital for Xiao Guai. Mika Kito's eyes moved. She said in a deep voice, Did Bailey Han go with you? No. Did you have a conflict with him? No. He frowned and suppressed his anger in his voice. If not, why did you suddenly go to Italy? Can you bear to part with Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao? Tell me the truth. Xiaodong scratched the balcony with her fingers. I'm just a little tired, so I came here to relax. Brother Shin, please don't ask anymore, okay? She could hear his heavy breathing over the phone. Xiaodong could imagine him trying to suppress his anger at this moment. She said coquettishly as usual, Brother Shin, don't be angry. When you get angry, I'm in a bad mood. I'm pregnant now. The baby can feel my feelings, damn it. He wanted to fly to her side immediately, knock on her forehead, and ask her what was going on in her head. Mika Kito said slowly, Okay, I'm not angry anymore. She smiled. Brother Shin, you're so nice. Mika Kito pursed her lips. After a while, she said, Idiot. Xiaodong smiled, but her eyes were covered with a layer of mist. She said softly, Brother Shin, if Bailey Han asks you about my whereabouts, you have to keep it a secret for me. Mika Kito paused for a moment and said, Okay. Something must have happened between her and Bailey Han. It was just that she didn't want to tell him, so he didn't force her. Bailey Han was a man of his word. The next day, he refused to visit Su Yunqian at the hospital and focused all his attention on finding out Xiaodong's whereabouts. It was useless even if Su Yunqian made a scene, refused to eat, and refused to eat. No matter how many times Mrs. Su called Bailey Han, he refused and then asked Old Madam to deal with it. Old Madam knew that he was thinking about Xiaodong now, so she didn't make things difficult for him and decisively shouldered this heavy responsibility. It had been a week. It had been a whole week. Bailey Han didn't have any news about Xiaodong. He tried everything to contact her on her phone, email, MSA, and even the games she used to play. However, it was as if she had disappeared from the face of the earth. There was no trace of her. The people he sent to track her down also didn't have any information. Bailey Han was going crazy. Add Songshu 566. Chapter 242. Bailey Han had become gloomy and cold, as if he had just been fished out of an ice cellar. His entire body exuded a chilling aura. The employees of the company were all treading on thin ice as they lived in fear. Even at home, he was stingy and refused to smile. Only when he was facing Xiao Bao and Xiao Yi would his eyes show some warmth. His family had seen his changes. Not only were they worried about Xiaodong and Xiao Guai, but they were also worried about his condition. The entire old mansion was shrouded in a gloomy atmosphere. Bailey Han barged into the CEO's office of the Bo Ao Group aggressively. Mika Kito looked at him coldly. What are you doing here? Bailey Han stared into his eyes. Tell me where Xiaodong is. I haven't come to you yet, and you still have the cheek to ask me. Tell me, why did Xia run away from home? Did you do something wrong to her? Mika Kito suddenly rushed over and grabbed Bailey Han's collar, her eyes blazing with anger. Bailey Han turned a deaf ear to his question and persistently asked, Tell me, where in Italy is Xiaodong? You bastard! Mika Kito waved her fist and punched him in the face. Bailey Han quickly dodged and quickly grabbed the fist that was swinging at him again. His eyes were burning with anger. Mika Kito, let me ask you, where is Xiaodong? If you want to know the answer, ask my fist first. The two men's arms were pressed against each other's necks. Their murderous gazes intertwined, and they couldn't wait to kill each other. They had been fighting for nearly half an hour, and the office was a mess. Both of them had different degrees of injuries on their bodies. Their clothes were messy and there was blood at the corners of their lips. However, the aura they exuded was still strong and cold, and their bloodthirsty eyes stared at each other furiously. Bailey Han's thin lips tightened. Where exactly is Xia Dong? The veins on Mika Kito's forehead throbbed. She could not help but curse, I don't King know either. Get out of here. Bailey Han stared fixedly into Bai Tang Tang's eyes as if he wanted to penetrate deep into Bai Tang Tang's heart. Bai Tang Shen also glared fiercely at Bailey Han. The two of them did not want to give in to each other. After 2 to 3 minutes of stalemate, Bailey Han suddenly pushed his arm away and said coldly, I will definitely find her. Mika Kito sneered. Since you have the ability to hurt her and force her to leave, why are you looking for her? Shut up. You don't understand anything at all. Bailey Han's eyes were red with anger. Humph, I only know that if it were me, no matter what, I would not harm her to this extent. Bailey Han retorted. It's a pity that Xia did not choose you. Mika Kito's anger suddenly soared. Like a furious lion, she wanted to pounce on him and tear him to pieces. However, she did not act. Instead, she dialed the internal line and said coldly, Jiang Dao, please ask the guest to leave. The next second, the office door opened. Jiang Dao reached out and gestured for him to leave. Mr. Bailey, please. Bailey Han straightened his clothes expressionlessly. Like a domineering and arrogant king, he walked out of the office with an aura of disdain for the world. Mika Kito was not lying. Xia Dong did not tell him where she lived. However, it was not difficult for him to find out where she lived. He only needed to call Tomac and he would know her whereabouts. However, he did not do so. Bailey Han was not the only one who was furious. Su Yunqian was also furious. She originally thought that after forcing Xia Dong away, Bailey Han would treat her wholeheartedly. She did not expect him to be so heartless. He did not care about her feelings at all and completely abandoned her in the hospital. For an entire week, he did not come to see her. Even when she called him, he gave her a perfunctory attitude. Even when she went on a hunger strike and tried to commit suicide, he did not care about her. This made her extremely disappointed and angry. She gritted her teeth in anger. She grabbed the porcelain vase with fresh flowers on the table and was about to smash it. However, she thought about it and put it down. This was a gift from Xiao Yi. She was counting on this broken vase to make a good impression in front of Bailey Han. When she was the only one left in the ward, she carefully checked the corridor outside and locked the door. She changed her SIM card and called a string of empty numbers. A minute later, her phone rang. The caller ID showed that it was a blocked number. A man's deep laughter came from the other end of the line. What's wrong? Do you miss me? Su Yunqian held back her disgusting desire and said coldly, Godfather, I want to talk about serious business. Oh, what serious business? You finally managed to trick Bailey Han. Not yet. Su Yunqian frowned. Things were going very smoothly. I had already gained everyone's trust. However, ever since Xia Dong ran away from home, things started to get out of hand. Bailey Han suddenly changed his attitude towards me. Didn't you say that if you let him see you being raped with his own eyes, he would feel guilty? Then you could use him to arouse his love for you. Why did he suddenly change? He doesn't feel guilty anymore. When Su Yunqian heard him mention the matter of rape, her beautiful eyes instantly burst out with bone-deep hatred. Her fingers trembled in anger as she coldly said, Don't mention the matter of rape to me again, you bastard. Didn't we agree to put on an act? You actually dared to use force on me. The godfather's eyes were cold, and his lips curled into a sneer. I'm just trying to make the show more realistic. We're facing millions of people. If we're not careful, they'll see through us. I think you are waiting for an opportunity to take revenge. Su Yunqian was so angry that she was about to vomit blood. You said that the scars could be faked and the rape could be faked. Then what happened? You actually let people hit me for real. The scars on her body were all caused by her godfather's subordinates. At that time, that hateful man even comforted her, saying that it was just for the sake of making the act more realistic. Her godfather proudly raised his eyebrows, but the words that came out of his mouth were very calm. Don't get agitated. I have already explained that it was for the sake of making the act more realistic. After all, Bailey Han and the others are not to be trifled with. If the scars were fake, they would have been able to analyze it through technology. If you didn't really suffer a huge blow, how could you act so realistically as a mental patient? Am I right? Su Yunqian's chest rapidly rose and fell. She understood that what he said made sense, but the main reason was that bastard was using his position to avenge private wrongs. She had always been the one to abuse men. Since when did that stinking man dare to abuse her? That damned godfather, one day she would make him pay the price. However, right now, she still had a use for him. She couldn't completely break up with him. She took a deep breath and slowly exhaled. She said calmly, "All right, let's not talk about that anymore. Back to the main topic. I heard that Xia Dong went to Italy. I know who she is looking for and I can also find out where she lives. However, it's not convenient for my men to do it. I want you to go to Italy to deal with her." Her godfather sneered. "Since your men can find out where she is, why don't you do it? I remember that our agreement was to force Xia Dong out of Bailey's house before I do it. Now that you have forced her out of the country, this is beyond my expectations." Su Yunqian snorted coldly. "No matter what, she has left Bailey's house. Didn't you want to use her to deal with Mikakito? This is a good opportunity." Her godfather was cunning. "I don't think it's that easy. Mikakito is Tomac's adopted son. Tomac's nest is in Italy. You're sending me to the muzzle of a gun." Su Yunqian sneered. "Don't you have a lot of people who work for you? I know that you have connections with the Italian mafia. Tomac's Dark Knight family also has conflicts with other mafia families. Why don't you take advantage of their conflicts? Do you still need to do it yourself?" Her godfather's eyes narrowed. "I didn't expect you to know so many things." Su Yunqian chuckled. "It's useless no matter how much I know. I'm a woman after all. There are many things that I can't do. As a collaborator, aren't you willing to help me? I still need to think about this matter." "All right, I can only give you 1 day to think about it. Otherwise, when Bailey Han finds Xia Dong and brings her back to China, everything we have done will be in vain." Her godfather replied faintly, "Wait for my news." After ending the call, Su Yunqian leaned against the sofa. Her eyes were filled with hatred. She was about to make another call when the door suddenly rang. "Yunqian, it's Mommy. Why did you lock yourself in?" "It's okay, Mommy." Su Yunqian rubbed her eyes to make herself look haggard. Then, she opened the door. Mrs. Su saw her daughter's red eyes and couldn't help but feel sorry for her. "Mommy, is Han still not willing to visit me? What did I do wrong?" Su Yunqian hugged Mrs. Su and sobbed. "Yunqian, good girl. Don't be sad. Han is too busy to visit you." Mrs. Su gently patted her daughter's back and lied kindly. "Mommy, but I really want to see him." Hearing this, Xiao Bao and Xiao Yi couldn't hold back their anger anymore. The two little guys roared together, "Bad woman, bad woman. So annoying. The listening device hidden in the vase transmitted every word Su Yunqian said to their ears. Knowing that Su Yunqian set a trap to hurt their mommy, they really wanted to immediately rush over and beat her up. Xiao Yi's face darkened. This damn woman is too evil. Luckily, mommy went to Italy. Otherwise, she and Godfather would definitely set her up again. This time, we'll let everyone know her true colors. That detestable old witch. Xiao Bao gritted his teeth and said, although Grandpa is in Italy and will definitely protect Mommy, we still can't let our guard down. Continue to eavesdrop. Oh right, we still have to report the situation here to Grandpa. Attention, Hongcha 866. Chapter 243. Because of Mrs. Su's interruption, Su Yunqian did not contact anyone from the outside world. The two little guys waited for an entire day and did not get any useful information. After Mrs. Su left, Su Yunqian originally planned to make another call, but the caregiver was in the ward the whole time, so she changed to sending a text message. The text message said in English, "Darling, that woman has gone to Italy. Help me find out where she is. I know it's not convenient for you to do it, but I'll find an idiot to do it." Soon, she received a reply. No problem. I'll get back to you when I have news. Su Yunqian unhurriedly deleted the message in her phone and replaced it with another SIM card. In the evening, Xiaobao reported what he had eavesdropped to Tomac. At this time, it was noon in Rome. Xia Dong was accompanying Tomac for lunch. Robert came over with the phone and said respectfully, "Boss, young Master Bao is calling. Give it to me." Tomac wiped his hands with a napkin and took the phone. "God Grandfather, this is Xiao Bao. Is my mother with you?" A young voice came from the receiver. Tomac laughed loudly. "Little rascal, are you calling for me or your mother?" "Of course I'm looking for you. But this matter has something to do with my mother, so it's good that she's here." Hee hee. "Tell me, what's going on?" The old man's curiosity was piqued. Xiao Bao told Tomac everything he had eavesdropped and said, "God Grandfather, my mother and father have been deceived by that bad woman Su Yunqian. You must protect my mother well. If she loses a single hair, I'll run to Rome and pull out all your hair." Tomac's deep blue eyes flashed with a trace of shrewdness. He smiled and said, "Little rascal, don't worry. God Grandfather treasures his white hair very much." Okay, then it's settled. I'll let you know when there's more news." The grandfather and granddaughter chatted for a while. Finally, the phone was handed over to Xia Dong. Xiao Bao said, "Mom, I've already told God Grandfather. Su Yunqian, that bad woman, had it all planned out. She cooperated with Godfather and pretended to be kidnapped and raped in order to destroy your relationship with Dad and force you out of the house." Xia Dong had already guessed some things from their conversation just now. After learning the details, she was startled and said, "I didn't expect that I would still follow her wishes in the end." Xiao Bao whined, "It's none of your business. It's all that bad woman's fault. Mom, although I also feel that Dad is in the wrong, you can punish him for a few days, but don't punish him for too long. Otherwise, when you come back, you will see skeleton Dad." Xia Dong was startled. "What do you mean?" Xiao Bao sighed. "What I mean is that Dad misses you so much that he falls ill every day. He puts all his effort into tracking down your whereabouts. He doesn't eat well, doesn't rest well, and has lost a lot of weight." Xia Dong gripped the phone tightly. "You guys persuade him." "We have, but Dad won't listen." Xiao Bao sighed helplessly. The veins on the back of Xia Dong's hand bulged. She was silent for a long time before she said, "I can't see him for the time being." "Mom, are you still angry with Dad?" although Dad is indeed quite hateful. Xia Dong calmed down for a moment and chuckled. I'm not angry anymore. Xiao Bao, keep an eye on Daddy. Don't let him be seduced by another woman. Xiao Bao patted his chest loudly. Don't worry. Leave this to me. Just as Xiao Bao hung up the phone, Xiao Yi suddenly ran into his room and said, Su Yunqian just received a call from Godfather. Xiao Bao was shocked. What did they talk about? From what I heard, Godfather agreed to the bad woman's suggestion. The bad woman even sent him Mommy's current address. Xiao Bao frowned. How did the bad woman know Mommy's address? Only a few people on God-grandfather's side know Mommy's current address. I think it's strange too. You should quickly report this to God-grandfather. Xiao Yi thought for a moment and said, now it's time to tell Daddy. Let Daddy find Mommy before Godfather and bring her back to China. Otherwise, if anything happens to Mommy, it'll be too late for us to regret it. Xiao Bao sighed maturely. His eyebrows were knitted together and he spread his hands. I have a feeling that I'm going to be in trouble. Do you think Dad will hang me up and beat me up if he finds out that I put a tracker in Mom's necklace only to tell him now? Xiao Yi's mouth twitched. He said expressionlessly, You're overthinking it. Xiao Bao reached out and put his arm around his shoulder. Come with me. If Dad really hangs me up and beats me up, you can at least hug his legs and cry and beg him to let me go. Xiao Yi's mouth twitched even more. He only said 2 words. Get lost. The 2 little guys swayed their little buttocks as they walked to Bailey Han's room. Bailey Han was sitting behind his desk, his fingers typing furiously on the computer keyboard. They didn't know what he was busy with. When he heard their voices, he looked up and his cold lips curved slightly. What's the matter? Xiao Yi poked Xiao Bao's little arm with her finger. Xiao Bao, don't you have something to tell Daddy? Xiao Bao scratched his head and smiled foolishly. Yeah, Daddy. I have something to report to you. Xiao Bao was smart. Once he spoke respectfully to an elder, he must be up to something or had done something wrong. Bailey Han smiled and said, Come closer. Oh. The 2 little meatballs shuffled over to him. He bent down and patted their heads. He said gently, Tell me, what's the matter? During this period of time, he was busy looking for a wife and didn't even have time to take care of his sons. He felt a little guilty. Xiao Bao coughed and grabbed his hair with his little hand. Daddy, if I say that I suddenly remembered that I put a small tracking device in Mom's necklace, will you beat me up? Bailey Han's heart suddenly jumped. He grabbed Xiao Bao's tender shoulders tightly and said in a deep voice, Xiao Bao, what did you say? Say it again. Xiao Bao looked bitter. Daddy, I actually know where Mom is. Don't hit me. That's great, that's great. Bailey Han suddenly picked Xiao Bao up and spun him a few times in the air. Then, he threw him high into the air. Xiao Bao was so scared that he screamed. He thought that his head was going to make intimate contact with the floor. His falling body suddenly fell into a pair of strong arms. Xiao Bao hugged Bailey Han's neck tightly and gasped for breath. It was so scary. His ecstatic father was too scary. Xiao Bao, tell me quickly. Where is your mommy? Bailey Han quickly asked his son after his ecstasy. Xiao Bao recited a long list of foreign street names. Xiao Bao, you're awesome. Bailey Han rubbed his pink cheeks and put him down. Bailey Han was ecstatic as he made plans. He had already asked Ahu to prepare a visa and a plane parking permit. He could immediately leave for Rome tonight. Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao watched him hurriedly pack his luggage and decided to disturb his mood. Xiao Bao poked Xiao Yi's arm with his finger, indicating that it was his turn. Xiao Yi walked behind Bailey Han with small steps and tugged at his clothes. Daddy, there's one more thing I want to tell you. Bailey Han was in a good mood and a smile appeared on his face again. What is it? Xiao Yi took out a small recording pen from her pocket and handed it to him. Daddy, this thing has something to do with you and Mommy. He and Xiao Bao had recorded evidence of their crimes on the day they eavesdropped. Bailey Han took the recording pen suspiciously. After he turned it on, he heard Su Yunqian and his godfather talking on the phone. Although he could only hear Su Yunqian's voice, he understood everything. He clenched his hands tightly. He could not believe that what he had heard was true. How did you get this thing? Xiao Yi said, Xiao Bao and I placed a listening device in the pottery vase and asked you to give the vase to Su Yunqian. Today, we heard this conversation. The children would not lie and would not deliberately frame Su Yunqian. There was only one possibility, and that was that Su Yunqian had really done something unforgivable. Xiao Yi continued, Daddy, Godfather has already agreed to Su Yunqian's conditions. He will soon rush to Italy and it will be detrimental to Mommy. Bailey Han's eyes were filled with anger and hatred. Damn it, their goal was actually to target Xia Xia. Xia Xia must be facing an unknown danger now. He had to get to her side as soon as possible. Bailey Han hurriedly packed his luggage and said in a low voice, Xiao Yi, Xiao Bao, Daddy will go to Italy tonight. Gigai and you stay at home and listen to me. Before I come back, pretend that you don't know anything. I will deal with Su Yunqian and Godfather when I come back. Xiao Bao puffed up his cheeks and said unhappily, but I want everyone to see Su Yunqian's true colors as soon as possible. Bailey Han said calmly, now is not the time. We don't know the power behind her. If we expose her rashly and force her into a corner, she may do something even more dangerous. So, don't touch her for the time being and wait for me to come back. Xiao Yi nodded heavily. Yes, that's right. Use her to draw out the power behind her. It's best to uproot them. You did well. I'll leave now. You can tell your great-grandmother tomorrow morning. Bailey Han was worried that the old madam would stop him, so he decided to act first and report later. Okay, Daddy, go quickly. The two children said in unison. Bailey Han patted their heads, picked up his luggage, and hurried downstairs. Soon, a Rolls-Royce rushed out of the manor in the night and sped all the way to the airport. In the car, Bailey Han had already contacted Ahu and brought the 5 best brothers in the gang to fly to Rome with him. Welfare, Songshu 566. Chapter 244. Rome. Late at night. Xia Dong leaned against the headboard with a tablet computer on her lap. Every night before she went to bed, she would check her emails. The emails in her inbox were all sent by Bailey Han. There were already 8 emails, one every day, but she never replied. In the first email, he asked where she was. He said he was very worried about her and missed her. In the second email, he apologized to her and said he would never visit Su Yunqian in the hospital again. He even asked where she was. In the third email, he said he was going crazy and couldn't bear to be without her. In the 7th email, he said he went to Mikakito's place to ask about her whereabouts. He had a fight with Mikakito. He said he missed her and loved her. When Xia Dong saw this email last night, she couldn't help but click on the reply button and write a short reply. However, after hesitating for a long time, she still clicked cancel. The latest email showed that it was sent at 9:00 p.m. Beijing time and 1:00 p.m. Rome time. Xia Dong opened the email. It said, "Honey, this is the 8th day since you left me. To me, it's like 8 years. Every night, I lie on the bed that belongs to the two of us and my mind is filled with you. Honey, I've been very obedient when you're not around. I've never looked at other women because you're the only one left in my heart and eyes. Honey, I miss you very much. Xia Dong had a smile on her face. Tears welled up in her eyes as she murmured, Honey, I miss you very much too. She couldn't help but read all the emails again. Finally, she turned off the computer and lay on the bed to sleep. At 2:00 a.m. in the morning, Bailey Han's private jet landed at the airport in Rome. He rushed to Xia Dong's villa as fast as he could. Bailey Han's car drove to the entrance of the villa. Ahu, who was in the driver's seat, gestured to the electronic monitor. The gate slowly opened and the car smoothly drove in. On the way to Rome, Bailey Han had already contacted Tomac through the number given to him by Xiao Bao and obtained permission to enter the villa. As soon as they got out of the car, a maid came over and said in English, Miss is resting. Please don't disturb her. Bailey Han said in a deep voice, Ahu, all of you stay here and be on high alert. He followed the maid into the living room. When the maid led him to the guest room, he stopped. Take me to the master bedroom. The maid smiled. Sir, Miss is already resting. Please don't disturb her rest. Bailey Han narrowed his eyes and said in a deep voice, Xia Dong is my wife. Call her madam from now on. Take me to the master bedroom. The maid said politely, Sorry, I only take orders from Miss and Boss. Boss said that no one is allowed to disturb Mrs. Rest. The boss that the maid was referring to was Xia Dong. Bailey Han's lips were tightly pursed. His whole body was emitting a cold aura. He said coldly, I just want to see if she's okay. I promise I won't disturb her. It was clearly a negotiation, but when he said it, he was full of arrogance. The maid was not moved at all. She smiled. I'm sorry, but I can't agree. Sir, please come with me. She extended her hand and made an inviting gesture. Bailey Han's hawk-like eyes quickly scanned the entire floor. He memorized the layout of the rooms in his heart. Bailey Han followed behind the maid, and the two of them stopped at the door of the guest room. Just as the maid was about to press the door handle, Bailey Han suddenly made a move and struck the back of her head with his palm. The maid fell to the ground with a thud. Bailey Han looked up at the surveillance camera on the ceiling. He said coldly in English, Take her back to her room. He walked past the maid and found the master bedroom. He gently pushed the door open and walked in. After the door closed, the room was pitch black. He didn't want to turn on the lights, afraid that he would wake Xia Dong up. He turned on his phone. Under the dim light, he walked to her bedside. Her whole body was curled up in the soft quilt. She was lying on her side and her face was facing him. The person that he missed so much appeared in front of him at this moment. He almost stopped breathing. His legs felt heavy as if they were filled with lead. He moved his legs with difficulty to get closer to her. He turned the light on the phone to the floor. With the dim light, he carefully looked at her face. Delicate eyebrows, a high nose bridge, rosy lips, and a peaceful sleeping face. Seeing that she was safe, his high tension finally relaxed a little. He reached out and gently stroked her cheek. Finally, he leaned over and kissed her gently on the lips. His arms gently hugged her in his embrace. In the minute that Xia Dong woke up, her mind was not very clear. She vaguely felt that something was wrong. She rubbed her sleepy eyes and took a closer look. Her whole body froze. A handsome face suddenly appeared in front of her eyes. It was the person that she had been thinking about day and night. She was actually using his arm as a pillow and lying in his chest. She thought that she was dreaming. She pinched her arm hard. Ouch, it hurt. She wasn't dreaming. He was really sleeping beside her. Xia Dong's trembling fingers landed on Bailey Han's face. She gently stroked his cheek. He was really as Xiao Bao had said. He had lost a lot of weight. There was stubble on his chin and there were dark circles under his eyes. He must have not slept well in a long time. She rested her head on his chest and hugged his waist tightly. As soon as she moved, he suddenly opened his eyes and stared at her face. Xia Dong was stunned by his sharp gaze. He suddenly said in a low voice, "Wifey, I'm not dreaming, right? Are you really by my side?" Xia Dong's heart ached. She smiled. "Hubby, you're not dreaming. I'm really by your side." "That's great." He hugged her tightly and rubbed his chin on her hair. He said in a low voice, "Wifey, don't leave me again." She hugged him tightly and did not say a word. Bailey Han said in a low voice, "Wifey, tell me that you won't leave me again." Xia Dong said softly, "Okay, I won't leave you again." He said fiercely, "If you leave me again, I won't let you go even if I have to chase you to the ends of the earth." She chuckled. He ruffled her hair in annoyance. During breakfast, they were served by the same maid from last night. She looked at Bailey Han strangely. To be exact, she looked at him with hatred. Xia Dong poked Bailey Han's arm and said in Chinese, "Marlene looked at you strangely as if you owed her money. When did you offend her?" Bailey Han focused on what he was doing. He cut the sausages on the plate into very small pieces and said casually, "She didn't allow me to enter the master bedroom last night, so I knocked her out." Xia Dong's mouth twitched. Then she said to Marlene in Italian, "Marlene, I apologize for my husband's behavior last night." Marlene smiled embarrassedly. "Miss, you're too polite." Bailey Han pushed the cut sausages in front of Xia Dong. He looked up and stared at Marlene with sharp eyes. He said in Italian, "Mrs. Marlene, please call her Mrs. Marlene." Marlene was obviously shocked. She had been communicating with Bailey Han in English last night. She didn't expect him to know Italian. Xia Dong didn't expect it either, but she quickly reacted and smiled. "Marlene, listen to Mr. Bailey's instructions. Call me Mrs. Marlene in the future." "Yes." Marlene bowed respectfully to them. "Hubby, other than Italian, what other languages do you know?" Xia Dong asked with a smile as she speared a piece of sausage into her mouth. Bailey Han said lightly, "I think I know French, Japanese, and German." Xia Dong raised her eyebrows. "What do you mean by, 'I think I know'?" He said calmly, "I haven't used French and German in a long time, so I'm not particularly proficient." "Hubby, you're the best!" Xia Dong exclaimed. No wonder the children were geniuses. It was because their fathers had excellent genes. Bailey Han's lips curved. He leaned his head in front of her and pointed at his cheek. "Reward me." Xia Dong pushed him away in annoyance. "Mind your image." They were not the only two people living in this house, whether in the open or in the dark. Bailey Han stroked her hair good-naturedly. They know what to look at and what not to look at. She snorted. "I'm not as thick-skinned as you." After breakfast, Bailey Han helped her take a walk in the garden. Italy had a Mediterranean climate. The winter was mild and humid, which was very suitable for nourishing the fetus. Xia Dong was tired from walking. Bailey Han helped her to sit under a shady tree. He took a thin blanket and covered her stomach with it. With one arm around her waist, he leaned her head on his shoulder and said softly, "Wifey, there's something I have to tell you." Xia Dong chuckled. "Is it about Su Yunqian?" He looked down at her. "Did the two rascals tell you?" She said softly, Bailey Han held her hand tightly. His eyes were full of guilt. "Wifey, I was too stupid. I was deceived by her and hurt you because of it. I'm sorry." Xiaodong covered his mouth. Don't talk about it. Let bygones be bygones. He hugged her tightly and said softly, come home with me. She shook her head. I can't go back. His hand tightened. Are you still angry with me? No, Xiao Guai has already been admitted to the hospital arranged by Godfather. The facilities are perfect and the medical technology is good. I want her to stay in Rome for treatment. Bailey Han was silent for a few seconds and said in a deep voice, I'll stay with you. Xiaodong quickly said, it's okay. The company and family need you. Stay with us for 2 more days and then go back. Bailey Han was determined. I've already decided. I'm going to stay with you and Gigai. As for the company and family, you don't have to worry. I have my own arrangements. Xiaodong straightened up and looked into his eyes. She said seriously, hubby, listen to me. Grandma is old and Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao need someone to take care of them. You should go back first. Xiao Guai and I have Godfather to take care of us. You can come and visit us anytime you want. Add Songshu 566. Chapter 245. Bailey Han said, honey, you don't have to persuade me anymore. I won't change my mind. If you're well rested, we'll go to the hospital to visit Xiao Guai. The hospital was only 1 street away from Xiaodong's villa. Tomac had sent many of his men to hide around the hospital to protect Xiao Guai. Bailey Han and the others soon arrived at the door of the ward. Xiao Guai was sitting on the sofa, and the caregiver was playing games with her. Both of them were laughing happily. The door opened, and 2 familiar figures walked in. Xiao Guai froze for a moment, then suddenly jumped off the sofa and ran quickly to the door. Daddy, Daddy, Bailey Han opened his arms and hugged his daughter tightly. Gigai, Daddy is here. Xiao Guai burst into tears. Daddy, why are you only here now? I missed you so much. Gigai, don't cry. Daddy will never leave you again. Bailey Han kissed her cheek gently. Xiao Guai cried for a long time, and her pale little face was full of tears. Bailey Han's heart ached. He carried her to the sofa and gently wiped the tears on her face with a tissue. He softly coaxed, Gigai, don't cry. If you cry again, your mommy will cry too. Xiao Guai wiped her tears with the back of her hand and looked up at Xiaodong. Seeing that her eyes were red, she quickly said, I won't cry. Mommy, don't cry too. Xiaodong approached the father and daughter, opened her arms, and hugged them tightly. Gigai, Daddy won't go back. He'll stay here with you and Mommy, okay? Bailey Han's heart ached when he saw his daughter's current appearance. Because of the chemotherapy, almost all of her hair had fallen out. She wore a small pink hat, which made her cheeks look even paler and smaller. But what about my brothers? There's also great-grandmother and grandmother. Xiao Guai raised his head. His black and bright eyes looked even more lustrous because of the tears. Daddy will go home to visit them every 2 weeks. During the winter vacation, Daddy will bring my brothers over, okay? Yes, yes. Xiao Guai nodded heavily. Bailey Han looked up at Xiaodong and smiled. Honey, our daughter has agreed to let me stay. Do you have the heart to chase me back home? Xiaodong bit her lip and didn't say anything. Xiao Guai tugged at Xiaodong's clothes with her little hand, swaying gently and acting coquettishly. Mommy, let Daddy stay. I'll listen to Gigai and take the medicine and injections. I won't cry or throw a tantrum in the future. Mommy, let Daddy stay. Her soft voice crashed into Xiaodong's heart, making her unable to harden her heart. However, her illness would be exposed one day, and she didn't dare to imagine the situation she would face when that time came. Bailey Han put an arm around her shoulders and said in a low voice, "Honey, no matter what difficulties there are in the future, let us face them together. Don't leave me alone again." Xia Dong lowered her head, not daring to look into his eyes. His voice was so low that she almost couldn't hear what he was saying. "Honey, let me tell you a secret. Actually, when you left, I was very afraid." He was afraid that the door to her heart that she had opened with great difficulty for him would close again. He was afraid that she would never want him again. He was afraid that he would never be able to find her again. Xia Dong struggled for a long time, but in the end, she still didn't respond to him. Bailey Han stared at her with a complicated expression. He thought that he had broken her heart. Although she said that she was fine, she still wasn't willing to forgive him in her heart. The family of 3 had lunched together and played with Xiao Guai for a while. The little girl was tired and fell asleep in Bailey Han's arms. He placed her on the bed and instructed the nurse to take good care of her. Bailey Han put an arm around Xia Dong's waist and walked out of the ward. He smiled and said, "Honey, we're going to visit Godfather now." Xia Dong looked at him suspiciously. "You know where Godfather lives?" He laughed. "I already talked to Godfather on the phone on the way to Rome. Otherwise, do you think I can enter your villa and this hospital without his permission?" She snorted. "Of course I know that Godfather agreed. I just didn't expect that Godfather would help you." She had already told Godfather to hide it from Bailey Han, but Godfather had lied to her. How infuriating. Bailey Han said proudly, "Well, I'm your husband after all." Xia Dong said coldly, "Maybe you won't be in 2 days' time." He gritted his teeth. "Why? Are you going to abandon your husband and child?" She raised her eyebrows. "That will depend on your performance." He stroked her hair in a good-natured manner. "Okay, I'll definitely perform well." After leaving the inpatient building, Bailey Han brought Xia Dong to a new car. After helping her into the car, Ahu started the car and drove out of the garage. "This isn't the car we came in. Why do we have to change cars?" Xia Dong had a nagging feeling that something was amiss. Bailey Han had come over from the country with a total of 6 people. Every one of them seemed to have extraordinary skills. If it was just to bring them home, there was no need to be so nervous. Bailey Han smiled. The car just now was uncomfortable. "We have to change to a more comfortable one." Xia Dong frowned slightly and said, "Godfather has recently increased the security of the villa. You also look like you're facing a great enemy. Is Godfather and Su Yunqian plotting something?" He stroked her hair. "Don't think too much. Godfather and I are just thinking about your safety." She looked at him suspiciously. "Is that really all?" "Of course." The purpose of changing cars was to cover it up. If he told her, she would only be worried, so he chose to lie. The car slowly drove into the castle. Tomac watched through the surveillance camera as Bailey Han helped Xia Dong through the spacious hall. He took good care of her along the way. There was a subtle look of satisfaction in his blue eyes. "You're Bailey Han." Tomac's deep eyes were fixed on the man standing in front of him. He was handsome, tall, and had the demeanor of a king. He was indeed a dragon among men. Bailey Han smiled and said in a low voice, "Yes, Godfather." "I'm not your godfather." Tomac leaned against the sofa lazily and looked at him calmly with a pair of eagle eyes. His voice was calm, but there was a sense of oppression. Bailey Han said indifferently, "You're Xia's godfather, which means you're my godfather." Tomac tapped his fingers on the back of the sofa and stared coldly at Bailey Han. Bailey Han didn't seem to feel the suffocating pressure. His expression was calm and there was even a faint smile on his lips. Tomac said in a low voice, "I'll give you a chance to prove to me that you have the ability to protect Xia. Otherwise, even if you're her husband, I won't hand her over to you. Okay, Bailey Han answered without hesitation. I'll leave Godfather's matter to you. My men will also help you in secret. You have to ensure the safety of Xia Xia and Xiao Guai. No problem. Bailey Han's deep eyes were filled with determination. Tomac and Bailey Han talked in the study for more than half an hour. Xia Dong waited until Bailey Han came out and asked nervously, "How was it? Did Godfather make things difficult for you?" Bailey Han's lips curved. Before he could answer, a deep and old voice came from behind him. Do I look like that kind of person? Godfather. Xia Dong smiled embarrassedly. She left Bailey Han and walked up to Tomac. She hugged his arm and smiled ingratiatingly. I was just worried that he would make you angry. Humph, don't think I don't know what you're thinking. Tomac deliberately put on a stern face. Xia Dong acted coquettishly. Godfather, I was wrong. Is that okay? Forget it. There's an old saying in China, a married daughter is like spilled water. You're on his side now. If he can also be on your side, I'll be satisfied if you two can support each other. Tomac gave Bailey Han a meaningful look. Bailey Han gazed at Xia Dong. He smiled and said seriously, Godfather, I'll remember what you said. Very good. Tomac nodded with satisfaction. In the blink of an eye, it was night time. On the surface, everything looked peaceful. In a building more than 200 meters away from the villa, a pair of malicious eyes were monitoring the villa through binoculars. He was standing by the window of the living room. Not far behind him sat a middle-aged man with an expressionless face. Nightingale, what's the situation with the surveillance? The middle-aged man asked. The man named Nightingale was the one monitoring the villa. He stared at the binoculars and replied, at around 10 a.m., a Maybach drove out of the villa and stopped in the parking lot of the central hospital. It wasn't until 3 p.m. that the Maybach returned to the villa. Until now, the villa has been very quiet. No one has come in or out. What did Firefox say? The middle-aged man asked again. She observed the villa for a day. It said that there are many bodyguards lying in ambush. There are more than 10 people in the surrounding streets. There are at least 10 people in the villa. Nightingale suddenly shouted. Wait a minute, a car is driving into the villa. The middle-aged man walked forward and saw a Rolls-Royce driving into the villa through the binoculars. Soon, 3 people came out. One of them was the pregnant Xia Dong. She walked on the left side. A man blocked her right side. Another man blocked her back. The position of the 2 men was the best place to shoot. The 3 of them were very fast. It only took them 10 seconds to enter the villa. If someone was hiding in the dark and shooting, he would lose accuracy because the target was too fast. The middle-aged man narrowed his eyes. If he was not mistaken, the man on the right side of Xia Dong was Bailey Han. He did not expect that he would come to Rome. Nightingale frowned and said, Wild Wolf, the other party is very vigilant. It seems difficult for us to lure Xia Dong out of the villa. The middle-aged man was called Wild Wolf. He was also the most trusted killer of his godfather. He was ranked number 1 in City A. This time, he went abroad for a mission with only 2 partners, Nightingale and Firefox. They were very good at collecting information. They even had the ability to steal the files of the U.S. intelligence agency. Welfare, Songshu 566. Chapter 246. Wolf said coldly, Since we can't do it recklessly, we can only use our wits. Keep an eye on the villa. I have something to do, so I'll leave first. Nightingale said, Got it. It was late at night, and there were few pedestrians and cars on the road. Wolf drove for more than an hour and entered an old castle in the suburbs. This was the territory of the Juris family. The Juris family was the second most powerful family in the Italian mafia, second only to the Anya family founded by Tomac. The two families seemed to be on good terms on the surface, but in fact, they were full of competition and killing intent. The godfather was friends with the boss of the Juris family, Barit. This time, the godfather wanted to cooperate with Barit to deal with Tomac. After Wild Wolf got out of the car, a man in a black suit led him to Barit's study room. They talked for more than an hour. Barit personally sent Wild Wolf out of the study room and hugged him goodbye with a smile on his face. China, early morning. Baitangshan's suit was straight, his head was held high and his chest was puffed out. He walked towards the boarding gate with Lu Xing and Zhu Kei following behind him. Suddenly, his cell phone rang. The caller ID showed an unknown number. A low voice was heard, "I'm Godfather." Mikakito didn't stop walking. He said coldly, "What do you want?" The Godfather laughed. "Mikakito, I just want to tell you that I'll take back the blood debt you owe me." Mikakito said indifferently, and then. The Godfather paused and said, "Then, bang, I'll send you to see God. It's too troublesome to see God. I'll leave it to you." Mikakito said and hung up the phone. They were on a flight to Rome. In 12 hours, they would stop Rome. Baitangshan was sitting by the window. When the plane took off, he turned his head to look at the blue sky and white clouds outside. His brows were slightly knitted. His godfather had clearly called to threaten him. What was he planning to do now? At that time, Mikakito didn't know that he would get the answer to his question in a few hours. But it would be a bloody answer. Rome, around 9 a.m. After Bailey Han and Xia Dong finished their breakfast, they rested in the garden. After sitting for a while, they decided to go to the hospital to visit Xiao Guai. Xia Dong planned to change her clothes. Just as Bailey Han helped her into the living room, the button on the iron door suddenly rang. Andrew glanced at the monitor and saw an employee of the express delivery company standing at the door with a small box in his hand. He spoke in Italian, "Hello, I'm an employee of the express delivery company. This is your express delivery." Andrew picked up the microphone and asked, "Who are the recipient and sender?" The courier replied, "The recipient is Miss Xia Dong, and the sender is Miss Yi Siki from China." "Hold on." Andrew hung up the phone and walked out of the surveillance room. He came to Xia Dong's room and knocked on the door. "Andrew, what's the matter?" Xia Dong opened the door. "Miss, there's an express delivery for you outside. It's from China, and the sender is Miss Yi Siki. I want to confirm if you know the sender." "Yes, she's my friend." Xia Dong thought for a while and said, "Andrew, wait a minute. Let me ask Siki first." She immediately called Yi Siki and asked if she had sent anything to her. Siki's voice was a little hoarse as she said, "Yes, I did send you something." Xia Dong frowned. "Yi Si, what's wrong with your voice? It doesn't sound right." Yi Siki coughed a few times. "I've caught a cold recently, so my throat is a little uncomfortable." "Are you okay?" "I'm fine. I'm almost recovered, but my voice is still a little hoarse." "That's good. Take care of yourself. By the way, what did you send me?" Yi Siki chuckled. "Didn't I already send it? You'll know when you open it." "Okay, get some rest. Call me if you need anything." "Okay, I got it. You take care of yourself too." After Xia Dong ended the call, she said to Andrew, "Siki send it to me. Andrew, please get someone to sign for it." "Okay, Mississippi." Andrew picked up the walkie-talkie and asked his companion, Bernie, to sign for the express delivery at the door. Bernie was a man who looked as strong as a bear. Although he was burly and looked clumsy, he was actually very agile. He put a pistol on his back and walked out of the security room at the gate with mountain-like steps. He pressed a button and the big iron door slowly opened. The courier handed a box and a pen to Bernie. "Hello, please sign for it." Bernie glanced at the courier and quickly signed his name on the express delivery receipt. Then he tore off the receipt and handed it to the courier, saying thank you expressionlessly. "You're welcome." The courier smiled and turned to walk to the car parked at the side of the road. He opened the door and sat in the passenger seat. The man sitting in the driver's seat glanced at the courier and stepped on the accelerator. The courier took off the hat on his head and threw it on the back seat. He took out a small and exquisite phone from his pocket with a sly smile on his face. Bernie carried the box to the door of the living room. Xia Dong thanked him and was about to open the box herself when Bailey Han suddenly grabbed her wrist and pulled her away from the box. He said, "Don't do it, Bernie. Open the box. Be careful." Bernie nodded. He picked up a small knife and gently cut open the box. When he opened it gently, the thing inside suddenly came into everyone's sight. Inside the box was a furry and cute teddy bear. However, everyone's expression changed when they saw it. This was because there were 2 glass tubes filled with liquid tied to the teddy bear's body. There were also some messy wires connected together. Next to the glass tubes was a small and exquisite phone. A time bomb. Andrew's face turned pale. Xia Dong's back was covered in cold sweat. Her hands and feet were cold. She couldn't help but grab Bailey Han's arm tightly. Bailey Han hugged her and said calmly, "Andrew, inform everyone to prepare to evacuate. Ahu, take Madam to the car first. Abeo, come and take a look at this bomb." Abeo was the bomb disposal expert of the Dragon Gang. He carefully looked at the bomb and said, "Young master, this bomb is very complicated. It will take at least half an hour to dismantle it. The other party can detonate the bomb at any time through the phone. It's very dangerous. Let's leave first. Abeo, inform the people at the hospital to secretly transfer Xiao Guai out." Bailey Han's handsome face was cold. His hawk-like eyes flashed with a terrifying light, and his body exuded a terrifying aura. His godfather was so cunning that he carefully set up a trap. It would be strange if Bailey Han wasn't angry. Everyone got into the car and drove out of the villa one after another. The cardboard box containing the bomb was placed on the table in the living room. Just as the last car drove out of the villa, there was a loud bang and a huge explosion. The entire villa collapsed. The huge airflow rushed to the back of the car and shook it onto the road, almost hitting the railing. Abeo was quick to react. He quickly turned the steering wheel and swerved the car to the other side. Xia Dong and Bailey Han were sitting in the car at the front. When she heard the explosion, she turned around and saw flames soaring into the sky. Thick smoke billowed, and many things were blown away. They fell on the road and burned with a sizzling sound. Xia Dong's fingers were cold. Bailey Han held her hand tightly. "Don't be afraid. I'm here." Her voice trembled. "Hubby, will Xiao Guai be in danger? I want to see her." Bailey Han put his arm around her shoulder and said in a low voice, "Honey, we can't go now. The enemy is mainly targeting us. If we go, it will lead the danger to Xiao Guai. Don't worry. I've already asked people to secretly transfer Xiao Guai out of the hospital." Xia Dong calmed down and said, "How could this be? It was clearly sent by Siki. How could there be a bomb?" Bailey Han hugged her tightly and didn't say anything. In his heart, he guessed that there were only 2 possibilities. One was that the package sent by Yi Siki had been replaced by someone else. The other was that Xia's call to Yi Siki had been intercepted, and that Yi Siki was also someone else in disguise. In a building not far away, Nightingale looked at the billowing smoke in the villa and the 5 expensive luxury cars on the road. She couldn't help laughing. Wild Wolf, your plan is really brilliant. You used Seki's name to send a package with a bomb. Then you asked Firefox to intercept Xia Dong's call and pretend to be Seki to confirm. If it were me, I would definitely be fooled. Wild Wolf, you're really something. Wild Wolf held a telescope in his hand and watched the scene outside. He said lightly, we're only halfway there. Don't be happy too early. Nightingale shrugged disapprovingly and said, Wild Wolf, I'm curious. Why didn't you just kill them all? Wild Wolf said coldly, if we killed them directly, how could we lure Mikakito out? Don't forget that Godfather's main target is Mikakito. I see. Nightingale was full of admiration for Wild Wolf. She said, the Eulis family should have taken action by now. Wild Wolf didn't answer. His black eyes revealed a vicious look. The 5 luxury cars drove to the suburbs at the fastest speed. The safest place now was Tomac's castle. They had to hurry there. Bailey Han frowned. A question suddenly popped into his mind. Why didn't the other party detonate the bomb immediately after sending the box into the villa? Why did they detonate the bomb after they left the villa? His temples suddenly twitched. He ordered in a deep voice, Ahu, tell everyone to adjust the order of the cars. Andrew, ask the people in the castle to support us. 2 cars overtook Bailey Han's Rolls-Royce from the side lane. There were 2 other cars behind it. There were a total of 4 cars, protecting the Rolls-Royce in the middle. Beauty novel, Shinwoo 799. Chapter 247. Just a minute after the change in the order, a large truck suddenly came from the front and sped towards them at an extremely fast speed. Behind it, there was also a large truck that sped over and surrounded their 5 cars in the middle. Bang! Bang! 2 loud noises were heard. The 2 cars at the front and back were sent flying. The 2 large trucks at the front and back were still moving forward and were about to hit the 3 cars in the middle. Ahu, who was in charge of driving, gritted his teeth and suddenly dashed to the side of the road. He brushed past the large truck in front of him in a very dangerous position. Caw-caw. The door of the Rolls-Royce was knocked off. The 2 trucks came to an abrupt stop. After a series of collisions, the scene was extremely messy. The drivers in the first and fourth cars were killed on the spot. The others crawled out of the cars with injured legs and arms. Blood flowed all over the ground. Ah Bao held a pistol in his hand and shouted in Italian, "Everyone, stay alert. Cover the young master and madam." The members of the Dark Knight family had undergone strict training. Even if they were injured, they still had great endurance and fighting strength. They all held weapons in their hands and stared at the 2 trucks cautiously. A group of foreign men in black suits suddenly jumped out of the trucks. They held machine guns in their hands and fired rapidly at the group of injured people. The truck at the front suddenly turned around and chased after the Rolls-Royce. Ah Bao's eyes were bloodshot. He gritted his teeth and fired at the tires of the truck. Although the bullets hit the tires, the gas in the tires did not dissipate so quickly. The truck continued to move forward and chased after Bailey Han and the others. A fierce gunfight began. Gunshots and screams intertwined on the empty road. Blood flowed slowly and gathered into small streams. The broken limbs were a ghastly sight. Ahu saw the tragic scene from the rearview mirror. His eyes were red and he wanted to jump out of the car to avenge Ah Bao and the others. However, for the sake of the young master and madam in the car, he had to remain calm. As the truck got closer, he stepped on the accelerator and shouted, "Young master, madam, hold on tight." Andrew, who was sitting in the front passenger seat, suffered the most. The door next to him was knocked off and he could only hold on tightly to the seat to prevent himself from being thrown out. Bang! Bang! The gunshots were getting closer and closer, and the bullets flew toward the glass behind them. The thick bulletproof glass was hit, and dense cracks appeared. Bailey Han shielded Xia Dong's head against his chest. At the same time, he pulled out a pistol from his waist and stared vigilantly at the back of the car. Bang! A gunshot rang out. The rear right tire of the Rolls-Royce suddenly shook. Ahu shouted, "Oh no, the tire has been hit." Andrew said in Italian, "The backup will be here soon. Hold on for another 10 minutes. Ahu frowned and stepped on the accelerator with gritted teeth. Bang! Another gunshot rang out. The rear left tire also shook, and the speed became slower and slower. In the end, it completely stopped 200 meters away. As for the truck, it stopped about 300 meters away. More than a dozen men in black suits jumped out from the back of the truck and quickly ran towards them. As they ran, one of them shouted in Italian, "Leave that woman alive. Kill everyone else." There were only 4 people in the Rolls-Royce: Ahu, Andrew, Bailey Han, and Xia Dong. Andrew was the first to jump out of the car. He hid beside the car and fired at the group of people. Bailey Han carried Xia Dong horizontally and escaped into the woods with Ahu's cover. A few of the dozen people fell, and the remaining 10 or so ran towards them. Ahu and Andrew did not have the upper hand either. Both of them were injured. 300 meters, 200 meters. The group of people was getting closer and closer. Bailey Han and the other 3 hid in the woods. When the group of people caught up to them, the 2 parties engaged in a life-and-death battle that resembled a game of hide-and-seek. Intense gunshots rang out from outside the woods. They could hear a large group of people marching towards them. Andrew's face lit up. He lowered his voice and said, "Sir, madam, our people are here." As Andrew was too happy, he accidentally exposed his hiding place. An assassin pointed his gun at him. Xia Dong shouted anxiously, "Andrew, be careful." Bang! The assassin suddenly fell to the ground. Xia Dong heaved a sigh of relief. Beside her, Bailey Han was pointing his gun at the assassin. Andrew turned around and stared at the assassin lying on the ground with his mouth agape. There was a hole in his chest and blood was gushing out of it. "Thank you." Andrew was ashamed and grateful. "Don't say anything else. Let's get out of here quickly." Bailey Han bent down again, intending to carry Xia Dong. At this moment, he suddenly saw a hand holding a gun sticking out from behind a big tree 50 meters away. The next moment, that hand pulled the trigger. He quickly used his body to protect Xia Dong and hid behind the big tree. However, he was still one step too late. Bang! The bullet grazed the tree trunk and shot into his head. At the moment when his body fell down, he let go of Xia Dong. The last thought in his mind was that he couldn't drag Xia Dong down because of his heavy body. The fierce gunshots were getting closer and closer. The people of the Dark Knight family had broken into the woods and quickly killed the remaining assassins. Xia Dong couldn't hear or see anything. She could only see Bailey Han, whose head was covered with blood. She grasped his hand tightly and her voice became hoarse because of fear. "Honey, don't be afraid. We'll go to the hospital soon. It's okay. It'll be okay." Blood flowed down from Bailey Han's eyes and stained the ground under him. The damp air was filled with the strong smell of blood. The light in his eyes dimmed. In his daze, Xia Dong's pale face was streaked with tears. Her mouth opened and closed, and his ears buzzed like thunder. He couldn't hear what she was saying. He tried to reach out his hand to wipe away the tears on her face, but he couldn't lift his finger no matter how hard he tried. In the end, the light in his eyes disappeared completely, and his eyes turned gray. "Honey!" A shrill scream pierced through the silent sky. "Quick, send young master to the hospital." A group of people rushed over. Some reached out to check his pulse, while others checked his breath. Ahu was covered in blood. He gritted his teeth and helped Xia Dong up. "Young mistress, calm down. Young master is still breathing." Xia Dong's panicked heart calmed down a little. She watched as they lifted Bailey Han up steadily. She followed behind them unsteadily. Someone came forward to support her and sent her to the ambulance. The nurse in the ambulance put a coat on her. The ambulance drove to the hospital at the fastest speed. Xia Dong sat beside Bailey Han and held his right hand tightly. Tears were rolling in her eyes. She choked and said, "Honey, you have to hold on. Even if it's for me and the children, you have to hold on." The ambulance passed by the area where the accident happened. The wreckage of the car was scattered everywhere. Many corpses were lying everywhere. Some cars were on fire, and thick smoke was billowing out. Some people were putting out the fire, some were moving the corpses, and some were giving first aid to the injured. It was like purgatory on earth. At this moment, Mikakito had just gotten off the plane. He suddenly received a call from Tomac. "Ah Shen, Bailey Han and Xia are in trouble." Mikakito's heart froze as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over it. He dragged the driver out of the driver's seat. Ignoring Lu Xing and Suzaku, he stepped on the accelerator and the car sped away like an arrow. The doctors and nurses pushed the stretcher quickly down the hospital corridor. Xia Dong held Bailey Han's hand and ran all the way to the door of the emergency room. "Madam, please let go. We're going into the operating room," the nurse, Miss, said. "Honey, you have to hold on. As long as you wake up, I won't care about anything. Please, you have to hold on." Xia Dong let go of Bailey Han's hand with tears streaming down her face. The lights in the operating room came on. Xia Dong felt as if all the strength in her body had been sucked out in an instant. She held onto the bench beside her and supported herself with difficulty. She moved her feet and sat on it. Her face was pale, her body was trembling uncontrollably, and her eyes were blank. Even though there were people comforting her, she couldn't hear a single word. Her mind was filled with the image of Bailey Han covered in blood. There was the sound of hurried and messy footsteps. Mikakito and the others ran over from the end of the corridor. He was wearing a white shirt with the buttons torn open. His suit jacket was draped over his arm, and his chest was heaving violently. He ran over to Xia Dong and saw that she was wearing a man's jacket. The dress inside was stained red with blood. It was a ghastly sight. He held her shoulders and asked anxiously, Xia, are you all right?" The familiar voice entered her eardrums. Xia Dong turned her head stiffly and stared blankly at the man who was panting. She blinked her eyes, and tears rolled down her cheeks. She burst into tears and cried, "Brother Shin, don't be afraid. I'm here." Mikakito hugged her tightly and said in a low voice, "Tell me, are you hurt?" "No, but Han, he was shot in the head." "Brother Shin, what should I do? I'm so scared." She grabbed Mikakito's arm tightly as if she was grabbing onto her last life-saving straw. "Don't be afraid. The doctors will save him. He'll be fine." Mikakito stroked her hair to comfort her. He looked up at the emergency room. His scarlet eyes were bottomless, and there was a hint of bone-chilling coldness in them. "Godfather, damn Godfather. He must have done something." Mikakito pursed his lips tightly. He would not let his godfather off. An hour later, the light in the operating room was still on. Xia Dong's nerves were tense, and she would tremble at the slightest movement. Mikakito's heart ached for her. He held her in his arms and gently patted her back. Tomac also came over and comforted her. He had ordered a thorough investigation into the identities of the assassins, and there should be results soon. Come and see, Hongcha 866. Chapter 248. Xia Dong had calmed down a lot. She bit her lip and said, "Godfather, Brother Shin, when we were attacked, I heard the killers say something. They said, kill everyone except that woman." Mika Kito's eyes narrowed, and Tomac's face darkened. This time, the Anya family had suffered heavy losses. A total of 12 members had died, and 3 of them were seriously injured. Of the 6 elites from the dragon gang that Bailey Han had brought with him, 3 of them were protecting Xiao Guai in the hospital, while the other 3 were seriously injured. Ahu's chest was pierced by a bullet, Abeo's ribs were broken, and Ning had lost his left arm. The killers were ruthless, and it was their style to eliminate the source of trouble. Since they had proposed to keep Xia Dong alive, they must have planned to use her to blackmail Tomac or Mika Kito. Tomac pulled Mika Kito aside and briefly told her what Xiao Bao had heard. He said, "Godfather is in cahoots with the mafia. I suspect that these killers are from the mafia, and their purpose is to eliminate you and me." Mika Kito frowned and said in a low voice, "They used a time bomb to force Bailey Han and the others out of the villa, and then created a car accident to intercept them. Their main purpose should be to kidnap Xia. Now that the operation has failed, they may have other plans." Tomac's blue eyes shot out a murderous look, and his face was fierce. "We have to find out their background before they make a move, and then kill them all in one fell swoop." Mika Kito nodded. "Godfather, I will take care of Xia. I'll leave Xiao Guai to you." After Xia Dong's villa was attacked, Bailey Han urgently transferred Xiao Guai from the hospital to another villa of Tomac's. Tomac patted him on the shoulder and said, "Don't worry, Xiao Guai is with me. I'll also send more people to Xia's side. We can't let them take advantage of us again." 3 hours had passed, but the lights in the operating theater were still on. The surgery was still ongoing. Xia Dong had been waiting outside the operating room without eating or drinking for more than 3 hours. Even if she could bear it, the baby in her belly couldn't. Mika Kito saw this and was anxious. He ordered someone to buy seafood porridge and brought it over. He stirred the porridge himself and waited for it to cool down before he scooped a spoonful and fed it to her. "Brother Shin, I'm not hungry." Xia Dong was worried about Bailey Han's injury and was not in the mood to eat. Mika Kito stubbornly placed the spoon next to her lips and said in a deep voice, Xia, even if you don't care about yourself, you should think about the baby. You're no longer alone. Stop being so willful." As if responding to Mika Kito's words, Xia Dong's stomach suddenly moved. The baby had kicked her lightly. The baby could feel her worry and sadness, so he was worried and sad too, right? Xia Dong placed her right hand on her stomach and gently stroked it. She couldn't help opening her mouth and swallowing the porridge in the spoon. Mika Kito's lips twitched and he scooped another spoonful of porridge. Xia Dong took the spoon. "Brother Shin, I'll do it myself." Mika Kito did not insist and placed the bowl and spoon in her hands. Xia Dong said as she ate the porridge, "Brother Shin, how long do you plan to stay in Rome?" Mika Kito took out a tissue and wiped the corners of her mouth. "I'll leave after I'm done with this." She looked up at him. "Did you come here for me?" He ruffled her hair. "Silly girl." Xia Dong was touched. She bit the spoon and smiled, but her tears fell. "Don't cry. The baby knows that mommy is crying, so he'll cry too. When he's born, he'll be a crybaby." Mika Kito's lips curved. He put an arm around her shoulders and patted her gently. Xia Dong said in a nasal voice, Okay, I won't cry. I don't want the baby to become a crybaby. Mikakito wiped her tears and said in a low voice, eat first. It's going to get cold later. Okay. Xiaodong finished the porridge spoonful by spoonful and drank half a bowl of chicken soup. With food in her stomach, her body warmed up. Brother Shin, is Xiaoguai safe now? She's safe. Don't worry. Godfather will take care of her. Xiaodong felt a little relieved. She looked up at his handsome face. Brother Shin, you rushed to the hospital right after you got off the plane. You must be tired. Go back and rest. I'm fine now. Mikakito smiled. I slept from the moment I got on the plane until I got off. I'm very energetic now. I don't need to rest. He ruffled her hair. Are you tired? Do you need to rest? She shook her head. I'm fine. I need to wait for the operation to be over. He was silent for a moment and said, should we inform Bailey Han's family? Xiaodong clenched her fists nervously. After a while, she said, let's wait for the operation to be over. The operation went on for 7 hours. When the doctor came out of the operating room, Xiaodong's entire body was stiff. She stood up from the sofa with Mikakito's help. She was so nervous that her voice trembled. Doctor, how was the operation? How's my husband? The doctor took off his mask. He looked a little tired and said slowly, the bullet in the patient's brain has been removed. The operation is considered a success. Thank you, doctor. Thank you. Xiaodong's eyes were filled with tears. The doctor smiled and said, Madam, there's one more thing. There's a foreign object in the patient's brain. It's a very small piece of metal. We removed it as well. Xiaodong asked anxiously, will the removal of the foreign object affect my husband in any way? We had a checkup in China. The doctor said that the foreign object was in a very special position. If the operation was carried out, it was likely to touch the nerves next to it. Madam, the doctor interrupted her. Madam, please don't worry. The bullet fragments hit the foreign object and caused the position of the foreign object to vibrate. That's why we were able to successfully remove the bullet fragments and the foreign object at the same time. This is a complete miracle in terms of craniocerebral surgery. We were all very shocked and felt that this was an incredible thing. Thank you, thank you. Xiaodong was overjoyed. She covered her mouth with both hands and breathed hard. Her chest rose and fell violently, and her face was already wet with tears. The doctor and nurses were also relieved. Mikakito hugged Xiaodong's shoulders. She couldn't hold it in anymore. She lay on his chest and cried loudly. Nervousness, worry, panic, and helplessness. After all these emotions subsided, she felt as if her whole body had been sucked out. She collapsed in Mikakito's arms. Suddenly, her stomach throbbed violently. It was as if someone had pinched a piece of her flesh and pinched it hard. She was in so much pain that she couldn't even breathe. Mikakito saw her suddenly clutching her stomach and her face turning pale. His heart skipped a beat and he hugged her tightly. Xia, what's wrong? My stomach hurts. Xiaodong had just finished speaking when her vision turned black and she fainted. Doctor, doctor, Mikakito's anxious roar echoed in the empty corridor. When Xiaodong woke up, it was already the next day. When she opened her eyes, the first thing she saw was the white ceiling. She was stunned for a few seconds and struggled to get up from the bed. The door suddenly opened and Mikakito's tall figure strode in. Brother Shin, her voice was hoarse and unpleasant. Where's Ahan? How is he? Don't move. Mikakito helped her sit up and stuffed a pillow behind her back. Bailey Han is in the intensive care unit. He hasn't woken up yet. Xia Dong held his wrist nervously. Will he be okay? Mika Kito's face was gloomy. He said coldly, he's fine. I think you're the one who's in trouble. Her fingers froze. His lips were pursed and his deep eyes were burning with anger. He said angrily, why did you hide the fact that you were sick from me? She instinctively lowered her head and muttered, I didn't hide it from you. I just didn't have time to tell you. When were you going to tell me? After the C-section? Or after Xiao Guai's surgery? Mika Kito's eyes were burning with anger. He really wanted to pry open her head and see what was inside. Xia Dong grabbed his arm and shook it. Brother Shin, I'm sorry. Don't be angry. Look, I'm fine now. He gritted his teeth and glared at her. Not good. Not good at all. The doctor said that you haven't cooperated with the treatment and refused to take the medicine. Your condition is worsening. Do you know that? Xia Dong laughed dryly. I just don't want to take too much medicine. It's going to affect the baby. Mika Kito roared, so you're playing with your life. I'm not. I'm trying my best to adjust my emotions and exercise appropriately to maintain my current condition, she explained in a low voice. I fainted this time because my emotions fluctuated too much. It's not a serious problem. Beitang Shen was simply driven mad by her. He stared at her for a long time, unable to speak. Brother Shen, don't be angry. I'm really fine. Xia Dong tugged at his sleeve. Mika Kito rubbed her hair helplessly. Xia, when will you learn to cherish your life? Xia Dong smiled. She cherished her life very much. However, because there were more important people to cherish, she always chose to ignore herself. Brother Shin, promise me one thing. Don't tell Ahan about my illness. Why? Mika Kito stared into her eyes. In the past, it was because I didn't want to agitate him. Now, it's because he just had surgery and his body is still very weak. I don't want him to worry. She begged. Brother Shin, promise me. Okay, I promise you. Mika Kito's eyes darkened with a hint of pain. She smiled brightly. Thank you, Brother Shin. I want to see Ahan. Mika Kito's face darkened. No, you're still very weak. You need to rest. She acted shamelessly. I'm already fine. If you don't let me see him, I'll be worried. It's not good for my health. Mika Kito keenly sensed that she had changed. She was no longer shy because she was afraid that he would get hurt. She was like before, acting shamelessly and coquettishly. She said whatever she wanted to say and treated him like an older brother. He was both happy and sad about her change. Welfare, Songshu 566. Chapter 249. He was happy that she was so intimate with him, but sad that she really only saw him as an older brother. He looked at her deeply, and she looked back at him and smiled coquettishly. He was defeated by her in the end. He held her waist with one hand and said in a low voice, "Okay, I'll take you there." Bailey Han was in the intensive care unit. He was lying among a pile of equipment and was in a deep sleep. His hair was all shaved off, and there was a long suture wound on his head. His handsome face was pale and bloodless, and his eyes were tightly shut. He looked lifeless as he lay there quietly. Mika Kito had already left the ward. Only Xia Dong and Bailey Han were left in the room. She sat at the head of his bed and held his hand. She said in a low voice, "Hubby, you have to get better soon." Bailey Han lay there quietly, without the slightest movement. Xia Dong sat beside him and accompanied him for more than half an hour. Finally, she came out of the ward and called home. The butler was so excited when he received the overseas call that he couldn't even speak clearly. Xiaodong smiled and said, "Butler, please transfer the call to Grandma." The old madam was also very excited when she received her call. Her tone was much friendlier. "Xiao Xia, I heard from Han that he found you. When are you coming back?" Xiaodong paused and said, "Grandma, we can't come back for the time being. There's something I need to tell you. You have to be mentally prepared." The old madam's heart tightened. Did something happen to Han? She had stopped Han from going abroad to look for Xiaodong because she was worried that he would be agitated by Xiaodong's illness. Could it be that what she was worried about had already happened? Xiaodong replied with an and said, "Grandma, don't be so agitated. Han is fine now." The old madam took a deep breath. "Go ahead. I'm ready." "Grandma, we were attacked yesterday. Han was shot in the head. The doctor has already operated on him and removed the bullet fragments from his brain. At the same time, he also removed the foreign body in his brain. He is fine now, but he has not woken up for the time being." Xiaodong was afraid that the old lady would not be able to take it, so she did not even dare to breathe loudly and quickly said this. The old madam's expression changed. She froze for a moment before asking in a trembling voice, "You took out the small metal piece too?" "I've taken it out." Xiaodong explained the doctor's explanation to the old lady, dispelling the last trace of doubt in her heart. "When will Han wake up?" "We're not sure either." The old madam let out a long sigh. "It's a blessing in disguise." "Who attacked you?" Xiaodong did not tell her the truth. "We're not sure yet, but my godfather is already investigating. If the mastermind is still not found, then aren't you in great danger?" The old madam said with lingering fear. "When Han wakes up, you'd better hurry back." Xiaodong thought for a moment and said, "Grandma, it will take at least half a month for Han's body to recover. Gigai's condition has worsened, so it's not suitable for him to take a long flight. I want to stay here until Xiao Guai's surgery is done." "Grandma, don't worry. Godfather will find the mastermind and protect us." The old madam frowned and sighed. "Xiao Xia, how are you feeling now?" "I'm fine. The doctor said that I can definitely hold on until the day of the cesarean section." That's good, that's good." The old madam's frown eased a little and she said, "Xiao Xia, how about this? Let Han stay in room to take care of you and your son." "But my illness," the old madam said earnestly, "Xiao Xia, since Han has already undergone brain surgery, he should soon return to normal and remember the past. You don't have to worry that your illness will stimulate him. When he recovers, you can tell him the truth." Xiaodong gritted her teeth. "If Han stays in room, what about the family and the company?" The old madam smiled. "Although I'm old and not very useful anymore, it's not difficult for me to handle the family matters. As for the company, Han has already arranged it before he went to room. His assistant, Lu Zihao, has handled everything well. If there are any important matters, I'll ask Han for instructions." "It's okay." Xiaodong had no reason to refute the old madam's proposal. The old madam said again, "When you reach my age, you will understand that whether it's money, power, or status, nothing is more important than family. When you gave birth to Xiao Yi and the other two, Han was not by your side. For him, this is already a pity. Don't let him regret it again. This time, let him be by your side when you give birth." Xiaodong said softly, "I know, Grandma." "Xiao Xia, don't blame Han. In fact, he has suffered more than anyone else. He has always felt guilty about Yunqian. He took care of her because of that guilt. You have to believe that the person he loves is you." Xiaodong's eyes were covered with a layer of mist. She nodded. "I know, Grandma. I know. The old madam's eyebrows relaxed. That's good. You two have to be well in room. Don't let an old woman like me worry anymore. Xia Dong choked with sobs. Grandma, don't worry. We will be well. During this time, I'll have to trouble you to take care of Ahan. You have to take good care of yourself and the children. Grandma, I will. You have to take care too. After ending the call, Xia Dong called Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao. When the two little guys heard that Bailey Han was injured, they were extremely anxious and clamored to come to room. Xia Dong comforted them for a long time before she convinced them to stay at home with Gigai. That night, the old madam informed the whole family about Bailey Han's injury. Everyone was shocked and worried. Bai Jinqiu covered her mouth and cried. Bailey Jing jumped up excitedly. Grandma, I'll go to room tomorrow. The old madam frowned. Xiao Jing, sit down. Bailey Jing sat down reluctantly. The old madam said, Xiao Jing, what's the use of going to room? Your brother and sister-in-law are in a bit of trouble now. You'll only add to their troubles. If you really want to help, go to your brother's company and help him manage it. Bailey Jing's little face suddenly fell. Grandma, I'm not cut out for business. You don't want to see me ruin my brother's company, do you? The old madam's face was sullen. Xiao Jing, you've been back for so long and have nothing to do. Go to the company and help your father or your brother. Isn't it good to learn management? But I really don't know how to do it. Bailey Jing's face was bitter. Grandma, I studied jewelry design. You want me to manage the company? Aren't you making things difficult for me? If you don't know how to do it, just learn. The old madam said earnestly, Xiao Jing, when your brother was your age, he founded the Xinghao Group. It's very hard for him to manage such a big company alone. He's injured and unconscious now. Don't tell me you're not willing to help him. Grandma, don't say any more. I'll go, okay. Bailey Jing was not afraid of anything. She was only afraid that others would use a gentle attack on her. The old madam nodded in satisfaction. That's right. As long as the family is fine and Ahan and the others don't have to worry, it's the greatest help to them. In the end, the family discussed and decided that Bailey Xiong would apply for an urgent visa and fly to Rome to visit Bailey Han. The others would wait at home for the news. Bailey Jing, as the acting president, would go to the Xinghao Group to take charge. Just as Bailey's family was in deep trouble, Lin Shihao's life was not easy either. He tried to persuade Bai Meiwei to abort the child, but she always disagreed. Instead, she advised him that if she kept the child, it would not affect his family. She asked him not to interfere in her private affairs. Because he had something on his mind, Lin Shihao smiled less after returning home. After dinner, Lin Shihao washed the dishes and Yisiki washed the fruits by the sink. She looked up at him, pursed her lips, and said, Hubby, do you have something on your mind recently? Lin Shihao smiled. No. It's just that I'm busy. Maybe it's because I'm too busy with work. I'm a little tired. If you're tired, take a rest. Don't you still have holidays? Let's go on a trip as a family of 3, okay? Yisiki put the washed fruits on the plate. Okay, I'll go to the hospital's human resources department tomorrow and arrange a vacation. Lin Shihao cleaned up the dishes and washed his hands. Then it's a deal. Where do you want to go? I'll check the information tomorrow. Yisiki picked a grape and fed it to him. How about Sanya? It's cold now. Let's go to Sanya to enjoy the sun. Lin Shihao hugged her waist and said with a smile. Okay, I've wanted to go for a long time. Yisiki poked his arm. Let's go out. Nyo is still in the living room. When Ñoño heard the news, she jumped and screamed excitedly on the sofa. But soon, she was like a defeated rooster. She said listlessly, "Mommy, Daddy, you guys go have fun. I'm not going." Lin Shihao carried his daughter onto his lap. "What's wrong?" Ñoño said pitifully, "I only have time on the weekends. It's not enough for a round trip." Lin Shihao rubbed her head. "Daddy will help you apply for leave from the teacher, but you have to promise me that you'll make up for all the missed classes after you come back from your trip." Ñoño's eyes sparkled. She raised her little hand and said excitedly, "No problem, I'll definitely make up for it. Daddy, I love you so much." Lin Shihao smiled and pinched her cheek. The next day, after Lin Shihao arrived at the hospital, he looked for his colleagues in the Human Resources Department to arrange a vacation time. Then he followed the procedure and filed an application. After leaving the Human Resources Department, he bumped into Bai Meiwei in the corridor. He nodded politely and brushed past her. She suddenly grabbed his arm and smiled. "Senior, this patient's condition is a little special. Please take a look." Lin Shihao said mildly, "Okay." He followed behind her and entered her office. She took out the patient's examination report and handed it to him. "This patient is more than 7 weeks pregnant. Her uterus is stunted. If she gives up on this baby, she may not be able to have another child in the future. Come and take a look." Songshu 566. Chapter 250. Lin Shihao said in a low voice, "The patient doesn't want the baby." Bai Meiwei shook her head. "No, the patient really wants to keep the baby, but the father doesn't agree. He wants her to have an abortion. She's very hesitant. She wants to listen to the father, but she doesn't want to give up the chance to be a mother." Lin Shihao's fingers froze. His gaze fell on the name column in the report. The 3 words, "Bai Meiwei," pierced his eyes. Bai Meiwei smiled sadly. "Senior, are you willing to give that patient a chance to be a mother?" Lin Shihao's entire body froze. He flipped through Bai Meiwei's report in disbelief. The facts proved that she was right. Her uterus was indeed a little special. It was very difficult for her to conceive. If she had a miscarriage after she got pregnant, she might never be able to conceive again. "I don't know if I'm lucky or unlucky. Senior, please give me a chance to be a mother. I really like children." Bai Meiwei's eyes welled up with tears. She grabbed his wrist and begged in a low voice, "Senior, even if I give birth to the child, I won't disturb you and your family. I'm begging you. Let me keep the child." Lin Shihao pushed her hand away. His thin lips were tightly pursed. After a while, he said in a hoarse voice, "Meiwei, medical science is very advanced now. Your illness can be cured." In other words, he still hoped that she would give up on the child. Bai Meiwei's tears rolled down. She bit her lip and said pitifully, "No matter what, I won't give up on this child." Lin Shihao wanted to say something, but someone knocked on the office door. "Dr. Bai, are you there?" Bai Meiwei quickly wiped her tears and said, "Wait a moment." Lin Shihao glanced at her and got up. "I'll leave first." He opened the door. A nurse was standing at the door. She smiled and said, "Dr. Lin, I'm looking for Dr. Bai." Lin Shihao nodded. "Go in. She's inside." As Lin Shihao walked down the corridor of the hospital, he felt as if his body had been soaked in ice water. It was so cold that he felt uncomfortable. He took out his cell phone from his pocket and searched for Yisiki's number. His finger hesitated for a long time before he finally didn't have the courage to press the button. Suddenly, a figure rushed over. Caught off guard, he staggered and subconsciously tightened his grip on the phone. I'm sorry. My wife is about to give birth." The man wiped the sweat off his forehead and apologized as he continued to run forward. Excuse me, excuse me. Lin Shihao lowered his head and looked at his cell phone. He had not expected that he would accidentally dial Yisiki's number. What's more, the screen showed that the call was in progress. Hubby, hubby. Yisiki called out twice, but she didn't hear any response. Honey, Lin Shihao said in a low voice. Yisiki quickly asked, Hubby, what's the matter? He rarely called her during work hours unless it was something important. Lin Shihao hesitated for a long time. In the end, he didn't tell her about Bai Meiwei's pregnancy. He opened his mouth and said, I've already confirmed the vacation dates with the Human Resources Department. That's good. When is it? Next weekend, and the Monday and Tuesday of the week after that. A total of 4 days. That's enough time. Yisiki smiled happily. Then I'll book the plane tickets and hotel today. Don't worry. It won't be too late to book them after the vacation report is approved. Yeah, that's right. What if there's a last-minute change? Hubby, you're so smart. Lin Shihao felt as if there was cotton in his throat. He felt very uncomfortable. Hubby? Lin Shihao forced a smile. Yeah, it's okay. As long as you're happy. I'm hanging up now. I have a patient coming in. All right. Go ahead. After hanging up the phone, Yisiki felt that Lin Shihao's mood was a little off. What happened? Could it be Bai Meiwei? Her good mood was ruined by this speculation. Yisiki sat in front of the computer, no longer in the mood to browse the plane tickets and hotel listings. The next day, Bailey Han still didn't wake up. Xia Dong started to get anxious. She asked the doctor, but the doctor said it was normal. His brain was injured, so all his functions needed some time to recover. She refused the help of the nurse and insisted on personally wiping Bailey Han's body. She wet the towel with warm water and carefully wiped his cheeks and body. By the time she was done, she was so tired that she was sweating profusely. Xia Dong stroked his pale face and said softly, Hubby, hurry up and wake up. The children and I are very worried about you. Xiao Xia. The door to the ward was suddenly pushed open and an anxious voice sounded. How is Ahan? Xia Dong turned around abruptly and quickly stood up. Dad, why are you here? Bailey Xiong strode to the bedside with an anxious look on his face. The family is very worried about the two of you, so I came to see how Ahan is doing. The doctor said the operation was successful, but he hasn't woken up yet. Bailey Xiong frowned. It's been 2 days. Why hasn't he woken up yet? Xia Dong poured a cup of tea for him. Dad, don't worry. The doctor said it's normal. Ahan's bodily functions are recovering well. Bailey Xiong sighed. I hope he gets better soon. Ahan will get better. Dad, sit down first. Have you eaten? Bailey Xiong sat down on the sofa. I ate on the plane. How are you feeling now? Xia Dong took an apple and said as she peeled it, it's okay. His condition is stable. Dad, how many days do you plan to stay here? I'll leave when Ahan wakes up. I've already booked a hotel. Foster father arranged a residence for me near this hospital. Dad, if you don't mind, you can move here. There are servants here who can take care of our daily life. It's more convenient. Xia Dong was mainly concerned about Bailey Xiong's safety. If they lived in the same apartment, it would be easier for the bodyguards to protect them. Bailey Xiong thought for a moment and said, well, it's more convenient to take care of you and Ahan if you live near the hospital. I'll ask my assistant to bring the luggage here. Xia Dong smiled and said, okay. Then she handed him the peeled apple. Dad, have some fruit. On the same day, Bailey Xiong moved the luggage into Xia Dong's apartment. As she said, the apartment was very close to the hospital and was very spacious. It could be described as a mansion. There were more than 10 bodyguards inside and outside the apartment to protect their safety. Mika Keto also lived in the apartment to protect Xia Dong. When Bailey Xiong saw him, his expression was a little unnatural. Xia Dong was his daughter-in-law, but she lived under the same roof with another man. Although Xia Dong had explained that she and Mika Keto were foster siblings, Bailey Xiong still felt a little awkward. The two men stood in the living room, facing each other. The atmosphere was a little awkward. Xia Dong quickly said, "Dad, Brother Shin is here to protect us." "Brother Shin, my dad will also live here while he's in Rome." Mika Keto looked calm and called Bailey Xiong, "Uncle." Bailey Xiong smiled stiffly. Okay. Shin, I'll have to trouble you during this time." Mika Keto glanced at Xia Dong and said lightly, "It's no trouble. Xia is like a sister to me." His words explained the relationship between the two. Xia Dong looked at him gratefully. Bailey Xiong looked much better and said, "I heard from Xia Dong that you and Tomac are investigating the identity of the killers. Do you have any clues?" Mika Keto looked serious. "The killers are probably from the Juris family, but we don't have any concrete evidence yet." Xia Dong frowned. Didn't the Juris family sign an agreement with Godfather to coexist peacefully and not interfere with each other? Mika Keto's eyes darkened and he said in a low voice, "That's just on the surface. In fact, the competition between the two families hasn't decreased. If the Juris family is really behind this, we won't let them go." The Anya family was ready. Once they had concrete evidence, Tomac would declare war on the Juris family. In the afternoon, Bailey Xiong went to the castle to visit Tomac and expressed his gratitude. Tomac was very considerate and polite to him. Xiao Guai was also living in the castle for the time being. When Bailey Xiong went to visit her in the room and saw her weak appearance, his heart ached and his eyes turned red. Xiao Guai comforted him sensibly and wiped his tears with her small hands. "Grandpa, I'm fine. Don't be sad." Bailey Xiong hugged her tightly. "Gigai, when Grandpa came to Rome, your two brothers asked me to bring you gifts. Do you want to see them?" Yes. Bailey Xiong took out Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao's gifts from the bag. Xiao Yi gave Xiao Guai a porcelain doll. The doll was pink and cute, wore a floral dress and a small hat, and had a bright smile. It was very lifelike. Xiao Guai cried out in surprise, "This doll looks like me." Bailey Xiong smiled and scratched her little nose. "This is you. Your brother Yi made it himself." "Wow, it's so cute. I like it." Xiao Guai hugged the doll and was so excited that she didn't let go. "There's also this. Your brother gave it to you." Bailey Xiong opened an exquisitely wrapped paper box, and the thing inside came into view. Is this a rabbit?" Xiao Guai pointed curiously at the thing inside the paper box. Bailey Xiong laughed. "This is actually a puppy." Xiao Guai giggled. Brother's hands-on skills are still not good. The puppy looks like a rabbit. Bailey Xiong smiled and said, "You're right. Xiao Bao's hands-on skills are too bad. However, although this puppy doesn't look good, it's very tasty. Hey, this is food." Xiao Guai took the strangely shaped puppy in her hand and pinched it. It was soft. She sniffed it and smelled it. It smelled so good. It smelled like osmanthus. Bailey Xiong said softly, "This is a 5-nut mooncake. Although the shape is a little strange, it tastes very good." Xiao Bao said that you guys were in Rome during the Mid-Autumn Festival and didn't get to eat mooncakes, so he made them himself and asked me to bring them over. Xiao Guai put the mooncake back into the box and blinked her big black eyes. Then I want to keep it and eat it with Daddy and Mommy. Grandpa, why didn't Daddy and Mommy come to see me today? Everyone kept Bailey Han's injury a secret from Xiao Guai. She was like a little princess living in a castle and didn't know anything about the outside world. Bailey Xiong carried her onto his lap. Because your daddy accompanied your mommy to the hospital for a checkup, they couldn't come to see you. She nodded. Oh, I know. Daddy and Mommy went to the hospital to see if the little sister was obedient, right? Bailey Xiong smiled. Gigai wants a little sister. Her little face was full of seriousness. Yes, if Mommy gives birth to a little sister, then my beautiful clothes and toys can be given to the little sister. Bailey Xiong smiled and praised, our Gigai is so generous. I will be very good to the little sister. I will teach her to sing and dance, and I will also teach her to draw and write. Xiao Guai wanted to be an older sister. She wanted to learn from her two older brothers and protect her little brother or sister. Gigai is so sensible. The little sister will definitely like you very much in the future. The grandfather and granddaughter chatted happily until Xiao Guai was tired and fell asleep in Bailey Xiong's arms. He put her on the bed and quietly left the room. He looked back at his little granddaughter who was lying on the bed and curled up into a small ball. There was a touch of pity between his eyebrows. The child was so young, but she had suffered so much. He hoped that his daughter-in-law would give birth to the child safely and cure Xiao Guai's illness as soon as possible. On the third day, Bailey Han still did not wake up. He was relying on nutrient infusions to maintain his body functions. Xia Dong and the others were very anxious, but after the doctor's examination, he said that everything was normal. There was nothing they could do except wait. The doctor advised the family to talk to Bailey Han more to stimulate his brain. Xia Dong had been taking care of Bailey Han for the past few days. She had told him a lot of things that they had experienced together. Even her voice was a little hoarse. Bailey Xiong said, Xiao Xia, you rest first. I will take care of Ah Han. He sat by Bailey Han's bed and recalled the past. In a gentle tone, he softly told the interesting stories of Bailey Han's childhood. As he recalled, Bailey Xiong suddenly realized that he was not a competent father. He had spent very little time with Ah Han. In Ah Han's childhood, his role was insignificant. He suddenly realized that his eldest son had been very lonely since childhood, which created his current cold personality. Bailey Xiong's heart was filled with guilt as he whispered, Ah Han, Daddy has let you down. I'm not a good father, and I've let your mother down. Don't sleep anymore. Wake up and shout at me. Even if you scold me, I won't be angry. At the end, his eyes were wet and his voice was choked with sobs. Xia Dong quietly left the ward and sat on the sofa in the hall. Two bodyguards followed her from a distance. She sat outside for nearly half an hour, but Bailey Xiong still did not come out. Mika Keto came over from the elevator. When she saw her, she frowned and asked, Why are you sitting outside? Xia Dong smiled and said, Dad is taking care of Ah Han inside. I came out to rest for a while. Brother Shin, did you find the evidence? Beauty novel, Shinwu 799. Chapter 251. Mika Keto's face turned cold. That old fox Barit is too cunning. When we follow the two trucks, he will kill all the related people and wipe out the Eulis family. Xia Dong was furious. She clenched her fists and gritted her teeth. They are vicious and well-planned. They won't give up so easily. Let's force them to show their true colors. Mika Keto's eyes narrowed and he stared at her deeply. Xia xia, leave this to us. Don't do anything stupid. I won't do anything stupid. I just want to lure them out. Don't they want to use me to threaten you and Godfather? Then I'll just let them tie me up. Mikakito put his hands on her shoulders and looked at her coldly. Are you crazy? You're pregnant now. How can you take the risk? But we can't just wait passively. Brother Shen, I'm living in fear every day. I'm afraid that they'll throw another bomb at the hospital. If we don't solve this matter, we won't be able to rest easy. Xia Dong was very agitated. She couldn't calm down at the thought that Bailey Han was injured because of this. Mikakito put his hands on her shoulders and said, Xia Xia, you're right. We have to lure them out. But you don't have to take the risk. Brother Shen, don't say anything. Leave this to me. Mikakito's eyes flashed and he said, don't visit Xiaoguai for the next few days. Why? Mikakito's thin lips curved into an ambiguous smile. Xia Xia, trust me. I have my reasons for doing this. She looked into his eyes seriously. After a long while, she nodded. Mikakito and the others were tracking down the Eulis family, and the Eulis family was also watching them. Barit met with Wolf in the middle of the night and said in a low voice, our operation failed. The Anya family has been tracking us closely. Do you have any good ideas? Xia Dong has a daughter named Xiaoguai. Tomac and Mikakito love her very much. Before you attacked Xia Dong's villa, Bailey Han transferred Xiaoguai from the children's hospital to Tomac's villa. Now, she has been transferred to the castle. Barit frowned deeply. You mean to say that we're going to attack Xiaoguai? There's no way we can break into that old bastard Tomac's castle. The corners of Wild Wolf's lips twitched. If it's not Xiaoguai's little hand, it'll be no different from throwing an egg at a rock. My partner had been monitoring Xia Dong for the past 2 days. He found that she would take care of Bailey Han in the hospital every morning and go to the castle to visit Xiaoguai in the afternoon. Since we can't attack her in the castle or the hospital, why don't we attack her on the way to the castle? It was a long journey from Xia Dong's apartment to the castle, and it was an hour's journey. It was a very remote place. Last time, they had set up an ambush on this road. This time, they might have an unexpected gain. Barit frowned. Tomac has been watching us very closely. If this operation fails again, we'll be exposed. Wolf said in a low voice, in China, there's an idiom, cut off the cauldrons and sink the boats. It means that we have to win the battle without leaving any way out. Since you've made up your mind to eliminate Tomac and Mikakito, you have to be firm. Next time, you won't have such a good opportunity. Are you willing to see the Yuri's family be subservient to the Anya family? Before Wolf left, his godfather had told him to persuade Barit to eliminate Tomac and Mikakito at all costs. In short, they wanted to use the power of the Yuri's family. Barit certainly knew that his godfather wanted to cooperate with him because of his power. However, he was also hurt by Wolf's words. Who would be willing to be subservient to others for the rest of their life? However, he couldn't make such a big decision rashly. He pondered for a moment and said, I still need some time to think about it. Wolf said, I've already studied the battle plan. I can guarantee that they'll fall into the trap without any effort. Let me know when you've thought about it. The next morning, Barit was still hesitating. He was worried that the operation would fail again and his identity as the mastermind would be exposed. With Tomac's temper, he would definitely flatten the whole family at all costs. The housekeeper came over with the phone and bowed respectfully. Master, Tomac wants to talk to you. Barit took the phone and waved his hand. The housekeeper left and he laughed heartily. Tomac, good morning. Good morning, Barit. Tomac, what can I do for you? Barit stood on the balcony with the phone in his hand and looked down at the scenery inside the old castle. Tomac said angrily, "Barit, I think you've heard that someone dared to behave atrociously in my territory a few days ago. I'm very angry, so I swore to find out who that bastard is." Barit's expression froze. Hatred surged in his eyes, but his tone had a hint of agreement. "Who dared to make a move in your territory? Who is the other party?" Tomac said angrily, "I'm not sure yet. However, if I find out who that bastard is, he'll be dead. I'll kill him with my own hands." Barit's expression was very ugly. His fingers gripped the phone so tightly that the veins on the back of his hand bulged. "Barit, I'm calling you to ask for your help in finding out the other party's identity." Tomac's words sounded like he was asking for help, but in fact, his tone was very bad. There was a kind of overbearing aura. Barit put on a fake smile and said, "Sure, no problem. Let me know if there's any news." Tomac didn't wait for Barit's reply and hung up the phone. His arrogant tone made Barit so angry that his lungs were about to explode. Barit threw the phone on the ground with a bang. His face was distorted by anger. "Damn Tomac, who do you think you are? How dare you talk to me like that? One day, I'll make you kneel in front of me and beg me to let you go, you damn old bastard." The more he thought about it, the angrier he got. This was the difference between the first and the second. The first was always superior, and the second could only obey the first's orders. Otherwise, they wouldn't have a good ending. Barit decided to be the first. He wanted to seize this opportunity to pull down Tomac. After Tomac hung up the phone, he turned around and looked at Mikakito. He smiled and said, "How was it? Do I sound like I'm being overbearing?" Mikakito gave him a thumbs up and said, "If I were Barit, I'd be hopping mad." Tomac shrugged and said, "More or less." I can almost hear the sound of Barit grinding his teeth. Barit's temperament is irritable, and he can be easily incited. With adoptive father taking action, this matter will be handled much more smoothly. Beitangshan's lips curved into a sinister arc. "Let's beat him at his own game." Mikakito came out of the study and walked to the balcony with Suzaku following behind him. The two of them stood in front of each other, facing the wind like two statues. Mikakito suddenly turned around. Her eyes were as sharp as blades as she stared at Suzaku. She said in a deep voice, "I want you to do something for me." Suzaku said calmly, "Okay." Mikakito's eyes flickered and said, "This is very dangerous. You might lose your life because of it." Suzaku smiled and said, "My life has long been yours. I only have one request." "Say it." "If I die, let go of Director Lin and guarantee her safety." "Okay." Suzaku smiled and said, "Then I can die without regrets." Mikakito approached her and put his right hand on her shoulder. His expression was serious. "It's good that you have the determination to die, but I want you to live." She stared into his eyes and said slowly, "I'll try my best." At the same time, Xia Dong was taking care of Bailey Han in the hospital. She wiped his face with a towel gently and said softly, "Honey, it's a new day. Didn't you say that you would accompany me and watch the baby grow up day by day? You're still sleeping in. The baby will laugh at you for being a lazy father." She unbuttoned his hospital gown and wiped his chest gently with the towel. Then, with the help of the nurse, she wiped his back. He couldn't see or hear anything, but his body could feel it. It was as if someone was wiping his body. Something soft was rubbing against his body. He wanted to move, but he couldn't. Bailey Han's mind was in a mess. He tried hard to sort it out, but he couldn't find the thread. Suddenly, he felt something warm on his face. It was soft and comfortable, but not long after, 2 drops of cold liquid rolled down his face. His fingers couldn't help but move. In the dark world, there was a faint light flickering. He couldn't help but follow it. The light became brighter and brighter, and it hurt his eyes. He closed his eyes and slowly opened them again. The chaos in his mind gradually dissipated, and scenes appeared in front of his eyes like a movie. That night, he drank alone at Charm Club. She deliberately stole the seed, and they had sex by accident. That rainy night, she slipped and fell. She reached out to pull him, but he pushed her away. She lay in the rain, looking at him with a painful and resentful gaze. His heart felt as if it had been torn open, and it was empty. In Bali, she went missing, and he went crazy looking for her. When she appeared in front of him, he was overwhelmed with ecstasy. That day, she said she wanted to leave. He drove in anger and crashed into an oncoming truck. The second before he lost consciousness, he suddenly realized that he had fallen in love with her, but he didn't have time to tell her. He thought he would never have the chance to tell her that he loved her, but she appeared in his life again. But at that time, he had already forgotten about her. Cold tears slowly slid down from the corner of his eyes. Xia Dong pressed her face against Bailey Han's. Suddenly, she felt her cheeks wet. She was sure that it wasn't her tears. She looked up and saw the tears at the corner of Bailey Han's eyes. She cried out in surprise, "Hubby!" Add Hongcha 866. Chapter 252. Hubby, wake up. Xia Dong's voice was very hoarse. It sounded far away, yet close at the same time. Bailey Han's chest felt stuffy. He struggled to open his eyelids, but the dazzling light made him unable to bear it. He quickly closed his eyes again. "Hubby, you're finally awake." "Hubby," Xia Dong was crying and laughing at the same time. She hugged him tightly and refused to let go. Bailey Han opened his eyes again and saw the woman lying on his chest. She was smiling, but her face was full of tears. His heart ached so much that he almost didn't have any thoughts in his mind. His body instinctively hugged her tightly. "Hubby, sob, you're finally awake." Xia Dong's tears were like a broken string of pearls. She couldn't stop them. He raised his hand and stroked her hair. He opened his mouth and said in a hoarse voice, "Honey." Xia Dong quickly raised her head and wiped the tears from her face. She asked with concern, "Hubby, do you want some water?" His lips were already cracked. Bailey Han looked at her face reluctantly. He held her hand tightly and said with difficulty, "Let me see you first." Xia Dong smiled with tears streaming down her face. "I'm right here. I won't run away. Let me get you some water first." He stubbornly held onto her hand and refused to let go. She lowered her head and kissed him on the cheek. She said softly, "Hubby, be good guy. I'll let you see as much as you want later." A smile gradually appeared in his deep eyes and his fingers slowly loosened. Xia Dong quickly helped him up and leaned against the headboard. She poured him a glass of water and fed it to his lips. She said softly, "Slow down." Bailey Han slowly drank 2 mouthfuls. He paused for a moment until he finished drinking the entire glass of water. Only then did he raise his head. "Do you still want to drink?" Xia Dong used her finger to wipe away the water droplets on his lips. He shook his head, held her hand, and pulled her to sit beside him. He stretched out his arms and hugged her in his embrace. He had a lot of things to say to her, but his body was still very weak, and the wound on his head was also very painful. He no longer had the strength to speak. Xia Dong let him hug her and said, "Honey, Dad came from China. He's outside the ward. I'll go out and call him. He'll be back soon." Bailey Han slowly released his hand. Xia Dong kissed him on the cheek, then got up and went out to tell Bailey Xiong the good news. Bailey Xiong was so excited that he almost burst into tears. He hurriedly called the old madam and informed them. When the call ended, his eyes were already wet. He pushed open the door of the ward. When he saw his son leaning against the headboard and looking at him quietly, he couldn't help but burst into tears and quickly walked towards him. Bailey Han smirked and called out, "Daddy." Bailey Xiong patted him on the shoulder and sobbed, "It's good that you're awake. It's good that you're awake." Bailey Han smiled slightly. "Ah Han, I'm sorry." Bailey Xiong's shoulders trembled and he couldn't continue. Bailey Han held his arm and said slowly, "Daddy, you'll always be my father." Bailey Han actually heard what his father said when he was in a coma. His father's remorse and guilt were all heard. However, at that time, he couldn't move his hands and feet at all. Only his consciousness was still clear. Bailey Xiong hugged him fiercely. Bailey Han's eyes were also shining with tears. After all, he had just woken up and his body was still very weak. He only said a few words and he felt a little tired. Bailey Xiong helped him lie down again to rest. After the doctor came to check on him, he said that the patient was in good condition and all his indicators were normal. Everyone was relieved. While Bailey Han was resting, Xia Dong came out of the hospital and got into a Maybach. The driver asked, "Madam, are we going to the castle now?" Xia Dong said, "Yes." The Maybach drove out of the hospital. Half an hour later, they were out of the city and headed for the castle in the suburbs. The car circled around the mountain road and there were many bends. The driver slowed down and soon arrived at the place where the pileup happened. The road here had been cleaned up and no one could tell that there had been a car accident. In the dense forest about 1 kilometer away from here, 2 people in black tights stood on the high ground and watched from a distance with binoculars in their hands. Wild Wolf asked, "Nightingale, are you sure Xia Dong is in that car?" Nightingale said, "Firefox saw her get in the car. I think something is wrong." In the past, when Xia Dong went to the castle to visit her daughter, there was always a car behind her. Why isn't there a car behind her today? There is. Look, it's behind her. Nightingale said, "It's about 500 meters away from her car. It's quite far." Wild Wolf said, "Yes." How many people are there in total? Firefox said that there is a driver and 3 bodyguards in Xia Dong's car. The car behind her, including the driver, has a total of 6 bodyguards. Wild Wolf nodded. "Tell the people on Barit's side about the situation." "Okay, got it." Nightingale turned on the headset and reported the situation in the car to the killers of the Juris family in Italian. Then she listened carefully to the feedback, nodding and replying from time to time. "Wild Wolf, the people over there said that they are ready. As soon as Xia Dong's car arrives, they will start immediately." "Very good." At this time, the Maybach was halfway up the mountain. The bends here were particularly dangerous, so the driver paid all his attention to the front. Suddenly, a smoke bomb was thrown out from the woods and rolled in front of the car. The billowing smoke immediately filled the air. The driver was worried about the pregnant woman in the car, so he didn't dare to step on the emergency brake. He slowed down the car and planned to stop slowly. However, with a creaking sound, the car tires seemed to have hit something and quickly deflated. "Madam, the car tires have burst." The bodyguard sitting in the passenger's seat raised his voice. "I'll go down and check the situation. You stay in the car." The bodyguard pulled out a pistol from his waist. The smoke outside had not yet dispersed. He covered his mouth with one hand and jumped out of the car with the other hand holding the pistol. He bent over to check the tires. Suddenly, with a bang, the bodyguard fell to the ground. He lay on the road with his face covered in blood. His bloody hand trembled as he pressed a string of phone numbers. He only said the word rescue before his head tilted and he stopped moving. The bodyguard in the car shouted, "Attention, everyone. Protect Madam." Xia Dong leaned over the seat and covered her belly with her hands. The car behind the Maybach saw the situation in front of them from a distance and quickly sped up to follow. However, when they were only 20 or 30 meters away from the Maybach, the same thing happened. A smoke bomb was thrown out from the woods and the whole car was covered in smoke. More than a dozen men in black suits rushed out of the woods. They all had pistols in their hands and wore special glasses on their faces. They could see the situation clearly through the smoke. "Hurry up, catch that woman," a man who looked like a leader shouted. A group of people rushed to the two cars. The bodyguard in the car could not care about anything else. He covered his mouth and nose with one hand and held a pistol with the other, shooting in the direction of the sound. "Protect Madam." Messy footsteps, screams, and gunshots all intertwined and echoed in the silent mountainside. In less than 10 minutes, all the sounds disappeared. The disgust also dissipated, and the whole forest returned to silence. The two cars were parked on the road randomly. There were two long nets made of iron thorns in front of the cars. The tires were punctured by the iron thorns and burst. There were several bodies lying in and out of the cars. Some were killers of the Urus family, and some were of the Dark Knight family. Blood flowed all over the ground, and the air was filled with the strong smell of blood. Among all the bodies, Xia Dong was not there. Her hands were tied, her mouth was taped, and her eyes were covered with a black cloth. She was escorted to a Hummer. Xia Dong sat in the back, and there were killers sitting on both sides of her. They held her arms tightly to prevent her from escaping. She struggled to free her arms and raised her head. The blond man sitting in the passenger's seat turned back and said in Italian, "Don't struggle. You can't escape." Xia Dong's eyes were burning with anger, and she stared at him fiercely. The blond man sneered, "The people of the Dark Knight family are just like this. You see, we beat them to a pulp. When the reinforcements come, we will have disappeared." As the blond man said, the Hummer was very fast and soon disappeared in the forest. When the people in the castle of the Dark Knight arrived, they only saw blood and bodies all over the ground. Mikakito's handsome face was distorted. He punched the car hard and roared at his subordinates, "No matter what, we must find Xia Dong." The Hummer drove for more than an hour to the barren suburbs. It drove through a forest and finally stopped outside a deserted factory. "Get out of the car." Two killers grabbed Xia Dong's arms rudely and pulled her out of the car. She seemed to have accepted her fate and quietly followed them. But the anger in her eyes revealed her emotions at the moment, which made the blond man feel very satisfied. His name was Fitch, and he was Barit's right-hand man. Fitch waved his hand and said loudly, "You, tie her up and leave 4 people to guard her. The rest, follow me." "Yes." The two killers dragged Xia Dong to a particularly thick pillar and tied her to the pillar with a very thick rope. Then, they took out their pistols and guarded her from all sides. After Fitch got into the Hummer, he contacted Wolf with his headset. "It's done. How's the surveillance on your side?" Wolf said in a low voice, "Mikakito has arrived at the scene of the accident and is very angry. I suggest that we raise the conditions tomorrow." Fitch was puzzled. "Why? Don't you Chinese like to strike while the iron is hot? Let him despair first, then give him hope. He will grasp that hope at all costs." Fitch laughed. "I understand. It's the last straw." "Yes, the meaning is the same. Okay, I have to report to the boss." Fitch ended the call. Awesome novel, Songshu 566. Chapter 253. In the abandoned factory, there was an empty hall with some oil barrels and lumber scattered around. Xia Dong was tied to a thick pillar, and there were 2 assassins watching over the hall. There were also 2 men with submachine guns patrolling upstairs. The heavy footsteps were especially clear in the empty factory, like a dull drum beating on one's eardrums. The sky was getting darker, and Xia Dong's body became stiff. She shook her head and moaned. A man approached her and stared at her with his sharp eyes. Xia Dong signaled with her eyes for him to tear off the tape on her mouth. The man was called Victor. He tore off the tape on her mouth. Her lips hurt, and she frowned. She moved her numb lips and said, "I want to go to the toilet." Victor said coldly, "Don't you dare play any tricks." Xia Dong panicked. "I'm not playing any tricks. I really want to go to the toilet." Victor glanced at her and waved his hand to call his companion. "Johnny, take her to the toilet." The man named Johnny was burly. He handed the submachine gun to his companion and untied the rope on Xia Dong's body. Her legs were almost numb. After the rope was untied, she moved her legs and said, "And the rope on my hands." "The rope on my hands can't be untied yet," Johnny said coldly. He pulled out a gun from his waist and pointed at her. "Walk forward." Xia Dong pursed her lips. Under his order, she followed him to the toilet. The toilet was covered in dust, and the floor was full of dirt. Some of the cubicle doors had fallen off, and the sink was dark and dirty. Xia Dong frowned in disgust. She raised her wrist and said, "Can you untie me now?" Johnny stared at her fiercely. "Don't play any tricks." Xia Dong smiled bitterly. "What tricks can a pregnant woman like me play?" Johnny thought about it and agreed. She had been blindfolded along the way. She didn't even know where she was. Even if she escaped from the toilet, she couldn't escape from the factory because they had already set up an inescapable net in the factory. He untied her hands and she walked into a cubicle. Seeing that he had no intention of leaving, she coughed and said, "Please leave first." Johnny closed the door of the cubicle and said coldly, "I'll stay here." He pulled out his pistol and aimed it at the cubicle door. If there was anything wrong with her, he would shoot without hesitation. Anyway, as long as he kept her alive, he didn't care about breaking her arms and legs. Xia Dong had no choice but to press the button on the water tank. Fortunately, there was still water in the water tank, and the sound of the water could cover up the sound she made, so it was not too embarrassing. After she was done, she pulled up her pants and touched her bulging abdomen. She smiled. "I'm done. I'm coming out." Xia Dong knew that Johnny must be on high alert, so she reminded him before pushing the door open so that he wouldn't mistakenly think that she was playing tricks and accidentally hurt her. Johnny took a step back and the cubicle door opened. Xia Dong walked out slowly. She held her abdomen and walked to the sink. This place had been abandoned for too long. The water that flowed out of the pipes was yellow with rust. After about a minute, the water became clear. Xia Dong then put her hands under the tap. "Okay, let's go back." Xia Dong retracted her hands and turned around. Johnny pointed his pistol at her. "You walk in front and go back the way you came." When they returned to the factory hall, the lights inside were already turned on. The dazzling light shone down from the roof. Xia Dong closed her eyes uncomfortably. Johnny took the rope and was about to tie her up again when she pleaded, "I'm a little uncomfortable. Can you not tie me up? I promise I won't run away." "No." Johnny refused and dragged her to the side of the pillar. "How about this? Give me a chair. I'm tired and want to sit down and rest." Johnny ignored her request and tied her to the pillar. This time, he didn't put tape on her mouth. Xia Dong said pitifully, I'm hungry. Can you give me something to eat? I'm pregnant. You can't abuse me. Johnny frowned and his temples throbbed. He really wanted to slap her. He had never seen such a troublesome hostage. Victor held the submachine gun in his hand and sat on a chair at the side. He said coldly, Johnny, let go of her hands and give her food and water. She was still useful and couldn't die. Johnny glared at Xia Dong indignantly and took bread and mineral water from the wooden table next to him. Although Xia Dong didn't want to eat the food at all, she had to force herself to eat it in order to maintain her strength. She ate the bread in small bites and tried to delay eating as long as possible so that her hands could have more time to rest. On the other side, the whole castle was in a state of extreme tension. Tomac sent many people to search for Xia Dong's whereabouts. Mika Keto also led people to search for her personally, but they didn't find any clues. They didn't tell Bailey Han about Xia Dong's disappearance. Instead, they lied to him and said that Xia Dong was accompanying Xiao Guai in the castle and wouldn't go back tonight. Bailey Han didn't think much about it and believed them. Nightingale had been hiding in the dense forest, monitoring the situation in the castle from a distance. She saw cars coming in and out of the castle frequently, and everyone had a dignified and anxious look on their faces. It seemed that they really valued Xia Dong. She had made the right bet. Nightingale reported the situation to Wolf, and Wolf discussed with Barit. They would contact Tomac the next morning and put forward their conditions. At night, the 4 guards were in groups of 2, taking turns to guard and rest. Xia Dong envied them for sleeping on the sofa, while she could only sit on the hard cement floor. Her hands and feet were tied, which made her very uncomfortable, especially her stomach. Hey, Johnny, please give me a blanket. Xia Dong shouted at Johnny who was patrolling. What a troublesome woman. Johnny muttered with dissatisfaction, but still threw a blanket on her. Thank you. Xia Dong arched her body with difficulty and covered herself with the blanket. She leaned her head against the stone pillar and closed her eyes to rest. No matter how difficult the situation was, she had to rest and maintain enough physical strength to deal with the fierce battle tomorrow. The next morning, when the first ray of sunlight shone through the broken window into the hall, Xia Dong suddenly opened her eyes. Her eyes quickly flashed with a trace of light. 10 meters in front of her, Johnny and Victor were sitting on the chairs with their heads down and taking a nap. On the other side, on the 2 big sofas, 2 tall and sturdy men were curled up on it, sleeping soundly. She bent her feet back, and the heels of her feet were close to her hands. Under the cover of the blanket, she put her right hand's fingers into her shoes and took out a 2-centimeter long blade from under the insole. The blade was very thin, but it was very sharp and could cut iron like mud. She hid a blade in her left and right feet. She hid the 2 blades in her sleeves in case of an emergency. After doing all this, she quietly closed her eyes. A few seconds later, she heard someone stand up from the chair, causing the chair to make a banging sound. Hey, Johnny, wake up. Victor pushed Johnny's shoulder. Johnny was shocked. What's wrong? Nothing, it's daybreak. Wake up, Feej will be here in a while. Okay, I got it. Buddy, you stay here and watch. I'm going to the bathroom. Johnny threw the submachine gun to Victor. Xia Dong pretended to be awakened by the 2's conversation and slowly opened her eyes. Victor glanced at her and ignored her. He walked straight to the sofa and woke up his other 2 companions. When Johnny came back, Xia Dong also said that she wanted to go to the bathroom. As usual, Johnny took her there. When she washed her hands, she also washed her face and rinsed her mouth. She followed Johnny back to the hall, where the others were having breakfast. Victor handed her a hamburger and a bottle of mineral water. She said, "Thank you," and spread the blanket on the floor. She sat on the blanket and let Johnny tie her feet again. She held the hamburger in her hands and slowly ate it. After eating, she looked up calmly and looked at Victor. "What do you want by kidnapping me?" Victor said calmly, "You'll find out soon enough." After more than an hour, a large truck and a Hummer stopped outside the factory. The door of the truck opened and a group of men in black jumped out. There were at least 30 to 40 of them. They were fully armed and did not enter the factory from the main entrance. Instead, they entered the factory from other entrances. Xia Dong could only hear a lot of messy footsteps. She lowered her eyes and listened carefully. After the footsteps disappeared, she whispered in Chinese, 34. As she spoke too softly and in Chinese, Victor and the others did not hear her. Vroom vroom, the large truck drove to the back of the factory and stopped in the garage. The door of the Hummer opened and a blond man walked out first. He was Feej. Feej walked to the back seat with steady steps and opened the door elegantly. There was a respectful look on his handsome face. "Boss." Barit walked out of the car. His deep eyes carried a dangerous message. His tall aquiline nose made his slightly chubby face look even more sinister. They did not enter from the main entrance but from the back door. They walked upstairs slowly. Standing by the railing on the second floor, Barit looked at the people in the hall and said coldly, "Inform Tomac." "Yes." Feej bowed respectfully. Feej hung up the earpiece and said a few words in a low voice. Victor responded and took off the earpiece. He took out a cell phone and handed it to Xia Dong. He said in a deep voice, "Call Tomac." Xia Dong looked up at him. His eyes were fierce. "Hurry up and call him." She pursed her lips, took the cell phone, and pressed a string of numbers. Beep beep. After the phone rang twice, Tomac's deep and authoritative voice came through. "Who is this?" Xia Dong opened her mouth. "Godfather, it's me." Tomac asked nervously, Xia, where are you?" Xia Dong was about to speak when Victor snatched the cell phone from her hand and said in a deep voice, "Tomac, your goddaughter is in my hands now." Tomac asked calmly, "What do you want for you to let her go?" Victor laughed. 5 billion. "Give me 5 billion pounds and I'll let her go." Tomac did not hesitate. "No problem. Time and place." A calculating look flashed across Victor's eyes. He sneered. "The transaction can only be completed by you and Mika Keto. At noon, the two of you will wait by the fountain in the central square. Remember, no one is allowed to bring anyone. Otherwise, you'll see Xia Dong's corpse." "Okay." After Tomac hung up the phone, he immediately ordered his subordinates to prepare the ransom and informed Mika Keto to go with him. At noon, at the central square. The spacious square was crowded with tourists. Beside the fountain, two tall and straight figures stood upright, each of them carrying a black password-locked suitcase in their hands. Time passed by. The tourists taking pictures by the fountain changed several times, but they still did not see the person who was supposed to meet them. Mika Keto's face was cold. She raised her wrist and looked at her watch. It's been half an hour and they still haven't arrived. Could there be a change in the situation? Let's wait a little longer. Tomac quickly scanned the surroundings and did not see anyone suspicious. Suddenly, a 7 or 8-year-old blonde girl ran in front of them. She raised her head and smiled sweetly. "Come with me." Tomac and Mika Keto quickly exchanged glances. They carried the password-protected suitcase and followed the little girl out of the square. They turned a corner and stood at the corner. The little girl stopped and looked up at them with a smile. Then, she ran away quickly. Mikakito narrowed her eyes and was about to chase after the little girl when a black Cadillac stopped in front of them. Two men in black suits stepped out of the car and said coldly, "Please get in the car." Tomac and Mikakito sat in the back seat. The car started immediately. The two men scanned them with a detector. They took out a pistol from Tomac's waist and two daggers from Mikakito's calf. One of the men put the weapons in the car's glove compartment. The other man took out two black ribbons and tied them around Tomac and Mikakito's eyes. Then, he pointed a pistol at their temples. "Don't play any tricks. Otherwise, I'll kill you right now." More than 2 hours later, the Cadillac arrived outside the abandoned factory. "Get out of the car." The two hitmen pointed their pistols at Tomac and Mikakito's heads and ordered them to get out of the car. Tomac and Mikakito carried the password-protected suitcase and walked steadily into the factory hall. They were elegant and calm. They did not look intimidated at all. Xiaodong saw the two men walking in from outside. She shouted, "Godfather, Brother Shin." Mikakito took a step forward. She looked concerned. Xia, are you okay?" Xiaodong shook her head. "I'm fine." "You shouldn't have come, shut up." Victor slapped Xiaodong's face. Her head jerked to the side and blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. Mikakito was furious. "What are you doing? We've already brought the ransom money. Let her go now." Come and see, Hongcha 866. Chapter 254. Let her go. If we let her go so easily, then why are we going through all this trouble? A familiar cold voice came from the second floor of the hall. Following the sound of heavy footsteps, Tomac saw a slightly plump man standing by the railing. He frowned and said angrily, "Barit, did you do all this? How dare you kidnap my daughter?" Barit said coldly, "That's right, I did it." Tomac was so angry that his whole body trembled. Barit walked down the stairs step by step. He looked at Tomac with contempt and said mockingly, "Aren't you the father of the mafia? Aren't you very capable? Why are you bringing ransom to save your daughter now? You bastard, Barit, I'm going to kill you with my own hands." Tomac's eyes were burning with anger. "Unfortunately, I won't give you the chance." Barit sneered and waved his hand. Fitch, who was behind him, took out a contract from his briefcase and handed it to Tomac. "What is this?" Tomac raised his head arrogantly. Barit's lips curled into a complacent smile. "This is a property transfer agreement. After you sign this agreement, all of your property, including your castle and your family members, will be mine. Don't even think about it." "I won't sign this agreement." Tomac refused immediately. "It's fine if you don't want to sign it." Barit waved his hand. Victor pulled the trigger and aimed the pistol at Xiaodong's head. Tomac's face turned ugly. He stared at Barit fiercely like a raging lion, ready to pounce and bite Barit's throat at any time. Barit was intimidated by Tomac's ferocious eyes. He was timid for a second, but he quickly calmed down. Now that he had something on Tomac, the one who should be afraid should be Tomac, not himself. "Hurry up and sign it," Barit urged coldly. Tomac took the agreement and carefully read the terms on it. This was a property transfer agreement in the name of donation. To put it bluntly, Barit was using the cover of legality as a cover to take away all of his property. Tomac's eyes were filled with rage and hatred. He read the contract very carefully and tried to stall for time. However, Barit saw through his intentions and gave Fitch a look. Fitch quickly walked in front of Xiaodong and pulled her up from the ground. He pointed the dagger at her stomach and said coldly, "I'll give you 1 minute. If you don't sign it, I'll kill her child first." Xiaodong said anxiously, "No, no. Don't hurt my child." Mikakito's eyes narrowed and his expression changed. He clenched his fists tightly. "Let her go." Fei Qi sneered. 50 seconds left. Tomac's eyes showed signs of struggle. His hand that was holding the pen began to tremble. Barit laughed proudly. "Tomac, hurry up and sign it. Otherwise, you won't be able to see your cute daughter and grandson." 40 seconds left. Fei Qi reminded coldly. Xiaodong shook her head helplessly. Her face was filled with panic and sorrow. Her hands were tied behind her back and her shoulders were trembling slightly. In Fei Qi and Barit's eyes, she was panicking to the extreme. However, in reality, she quietly took out a blade from her sleeve and pointed it at the rope around her wrists. 20 seconds left. Barit stared at Tomac carefully. He didn't want to miss the expression on his face. His cold face revealed a hesitant expression. "How interesting." Barit mocked, "Tomac, don't you love your adopted daughter the most? What, you can't bear to give up all of your property in exchange for her life?" 10 seconds left. Mikakito clenched her fists and couldn't help but call out, "Adoptive father." Tomac closed his eyes as if he was listening to something. Suddenly, his eyes opened abruptly. His gaze swept across the second floor quickly and he said coldly, "Let her go and I'll sign it." "That's the way." "Fei Qi, let her go." Barit raised his eyebrows proudly. A treacherous smile appeared on his slightly plump face. It made people feel as disgusted as if they had swallowed a fly. Tomac held the pen and placed the tip of the pen on the blank space where the signature should be. He didn't put the pen down for a long time. Barit was impatient. "Tomac, you old bastard. Hurry up and sign it." Tomac raised his head abruptly. His eyes were sharp like an eagle's as he stared at Barit. His thin lips were tightly pursed and he didn't say a word. Barit suddenly pulled out a pistol from his waist and pointed it at Tomac's head. He said fiercely, "Hurry up, or I'll blow your head off." Tomac smiled coldly. "You're the one who's going to get your head blown off, Barit." Just as he finished speaking, a few gunshots rang out and the gun in Barit's hand was knocked away. The other assassins were shot and fell to the ground. Barit shouted loudly, "Hurry up and kill them." Xiaodong suddenly jumped up from the ground and grabbed Fei Qi's wrist with both hands. She threw him to the ground fiercely. At the same time, the blade in her hand slid across his neck and fresh blood flowed down. Fei Qi stared at Xiaodong with his eyes wide open. Until his death, he still couldn't understand how this woman could suddenly explode with such strength. A group of men in black suits suddenly rushed out from all directions and surrounded the railing on the second floor. They aimed their black muzzles at the people in the hall. Barit pointed at Tomac and the others and shouted, "Kill them all. Don't leave a single one alive." No one made a move. Barit was furious. "What's wrong with you guys? Hurry up and kill them." Tomac laughed loudly. "Barit, let me tell you what's going on. They're not your men at all. They're my men from the Dark Knight family." Barit couldn't believe his eyes as he glanced at the group of people. He staggered. "No, impossible. I've clearly placed more than 30 people in this factory." Tomac looked at him coldly. 34 of them were all killed by my men. The ones you see now are all my men. Barit looked around. All the muzzles were aimed at him. Now, he was the only one left in the hall. He tightened his lips and clenched his fists. "How did you do it?" Even if he failed, he wanted to know where he went wrong. Tomac's sight fell on Xiaodong's body. He nodded lightly. Xia Dong suddenly lifted her clothes. Her bulging belly could be seen. Barit was puzzled. Suddenly, he saw her grabbing her stomach tightly with both of her hands and tearing it apart. A soft thing that looked like human skin was torn off. She threw that thing on the ground. Her belly had returned to its original smooth and flat state. Barit was shocked. You're not Xia Dong. Of course I'm not Xia Dong. My name is Suzaku. Don't forget my name on the road to hell. Suzaku returned to her usual voice. It was cold and emotionless. However, her face was still Xia Dong's. This was the result of her disguise. It could only be washed off with a special potion. Barit's eyes widened. No wonder you're so good at fighting. He saw how she took Fitch's life with just one move. It was only at this moment that Barit realized that he had fallen into the other party's trap. He gritted his teeth in hatred. Suzaku kicked away the fake skin that was made of resin. It felt no different from a real person's skin. A small tracking device was revealed. She said coldly, "It's this thing that exposed your hiding place." Tomac continued, "Before your people set up an ambush in this factory, my people had already set up an ambush inside. When Ashen and I walked in here, they began to replace your people one by one. So, the reason why you're dealing with me is to stall for time so that you can replace them all. Correct." Tomac smiled eerily. "Barit, you've been scheming against me. Now that you've failed miserably, what last wishes do you have? Tell me. Maybe I'll be kind and help you fulfill them." Barit's eyes flashed coldly. "Who said that I've failed miserably? I still have one last move. At worst, we'll die together." Unknowingly, an MP4-like thing appeared in his hand. His thumb pressed on the red button and he said coldly, "This is the detonator. I've already asked my people to bury a bomb in this factory. The bomb's power is enough to destroy the buildings within a kilometer radius. As long as I press the button, you'll all have to go to hell with me. So?" Tomac shrugged, looking as if he did not think much of it. Barit held the detonator tightly. "Let me go and we'll forget about this." Tomac crossed his arms and said indifferently, "Impossible." Barit was furious. He said fiercely, "I'll give you 1 minute to consider. Otherwise, I'll detonate the bomb." Tomac sneered. "There's no need to consider. You can detonate the bomb now." Barit held the detonator and didn't move. He was the one who asked his people to bury the bomb. He knew how powerful it was. He still had a last hope that it could threaten Tomac. "What's wrong? You don't dare to press the button? If you continue to hesitate, my people will immediately blow your head off. At that time, we'll see if you're faster than my people." Tomac sneered. Click click. In the spacious hall, the sound of bullets being loaded could be heard. The sound was uniform. Barit knew that there were dozens of guns aimed at him. He clenched his teeth and made up his mind to die together with them. He closed his eyes and pressed the button. It was quiet all around. There wasn't the explosion that he expected, nor was there the pain that he imagined. Barit opened his eyes in disbelief. He looked around stiffly. The black muzzles were still pointed at him. What was different was that everyone had a mocking smile on their faces. Tomac spread out his hands. "Barit, I'm sorry to disappoint you. Last night, my people had already defused all the bombs." Barit looked 10 years older in an instant. He staggered a few steps back and the detonator in his hand fell to the ground. "I've said it before. I'll personally execute you." Tomac took the pistol from his subordinate and aimed at Barit's head. Awesome novel, Songshu 566. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.